online, also accessible, whether by councillors, staff, council staff, or public. Any person adjudged by the chair of the meeting to have breached this rule may be asked to apologise, withdraw their statements, and or leave the meeting. So, that having been said, before I move to public participation, I would just like to say to councillors that there is a slight adjustment to the agenda, that item number 8 on the agenda, to consider the requests of the Bude Croquet Club relating to their lease and premises, we are going to swap it with item 6, so that 8, and there's no item 7. So 6 and 8 are transposed, so the Croquet Club item comes first, then the notice of motion item comes second. Okay, that's beautiful, a convenience possibly to members of the public. That having been said, and now then move to public participation, members of the public are invited to comment on matters within the parish. So, would you like to say something?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, would you like to say something?
Yes, please.
Okay, please do.
Shall I start now? Okay, two things. First thing, I attended the planning committee, which was the planning committee. I have to say, I was impressed. Councillor O'Sullivan for his experience in leading that meeting, Sean Deering for her diligence, Vicky Herbert Coxon, and Councillor Kilby, who was also there for their input. Very impressed. So thank you. And then the next thing is item 9 on this agenda. I am very disappointed to see that it is only referred to as dealing with resolution FC 149/24. I don't think that's properly informing the public, and I consider it the same vague detail as was put in the statement from Bude-Stratton Town Council earlier. I consider it obfuscating the matters being dealt with, and I don't think that's in the public interest. It's a very serious matter that you're discussing between the client partnership and the council. Very serious matter for every person in this town and the town itself. I think it should be made perfectly clear what it's about. I think it is clear, from my view as a member of the public, it is clear that the relationship, the partnership between the climate partnership and this council has broken down to the point where it is not fit for democratic or business purposes. It needs major attention, and I'll be one of the people, I'm sure, looking for that to be done by this council. There's been considerable unease about the operation of the climate partnership from the public, and that was put to this council by a representative, one of your members. That resulted in a 60-page code of conduct complaint against that member, which I think is atrocious. Now, what makes it more atrocious is that that member was completely exonerated for doing his public duty. Okay, let that not be forgotten. He acted perfectly properly, as you all have a duty to do. About that 60-page complaint, Bude Climate Partnership is a very well-funded organisation, a community interest company with paid officers. Why were none of them able to advise that that complaint would fail in every aspect? I think it's a shocking indictment of their expertise. A senior member of the Climate Partnership was the councillor himself. Why did he not advise that that complaint was absolutely groundless? It didn't stand a chance of getting through. I believe that a complaint made in the name of the members of that organisation has to be voted on. I would be very interested to know what that vote was. I would be very interested to know what guidance those people were given about that complaint, and including from the liaison representatives from this council. And I think they're in a very, very serious question. So, as I understand it, the liaison members from this council, possibly only one vote, is allowed at Bude Climate Partnership. I'd be very interested to know what that vote was. I would also be interested to know what liaison came from the Climate Partnership back to this council and what was done about it. Because as far as I'm concerned, if you people were aware of what was going on and you didn't stop it, that's shameful. And that's about it. I think the final comment I would make is I've noticed some concern that if this matter gets inflated and becomes a big fuss, that we could lose, this town could lose funding either now or in future as a result of it. If that happens, make no mistake, the responsibility for it lies with Bude Climate Partnership and this council. Get it sorted, people. Thank you.
Obviously, there are many things there.
Yeah.
That I will say that I can't reply to.
Yes, of course.
But I will agree with you entirely on one thing, that the relationship between Bude-Stratton Town Council and BCP does require major attention and is getting, I can tell you, is getting major attention at this point in time.
Good.
I know that is not a very satisfactory answer at this point in time, but that is all I can say to that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You should like to say something.
Good evening. My name is Jack Vincent and I'm here on behalf of my mother, Francesca Vincent, Unit 2. Unfortunately, she is unable to attend the meeting tonight, which she sends her apologies. This is the first time since the start of her thyroid and lung cancer diagnosis she's been allowed to travel, which in my opinion is well overdue. I'd also like to add she's finally had the all clear from the doctors after her surgery, which is great news. She's written a statement I'll read out on her behalf. As some of you know, running a business in Bude is not easy. For the last 12 years, I've worked hard to become an established local business, showing my now grown-up children that if you're dedicated to something, it can be done. Quiet winter months, thank goodness, seem to be a thing of the past, and I now have a regular returning customer base, both local and visiting. Bad health over the last 2 years has meant relying on my family to support me running and keeping the studio open, but hopefully I'm now coming out the other side. I'm hoping you will allow me to continue running my business from the wharf, as I'm not sure what else I would do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like to say something?
I also want to talk to you about that was item number 6, now being item number 8. I have got a bit to read out. If that is discussed, would you like me to do it now or would you like me to do it?
I think on this occasion, I'd be quite happy for you to contribute during that item, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah.
So it'd be clear in impression in listeners' minds.
Yes, that's what I was just
Okay,
hoping to clarify a few points and just to recap a few
I
things.
will certainly call on you probably after the probably one councillor that would want to speak to the resolutions here.
Yeah.
And after they've spoken, I would call on you first.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to second what my friend Richard has said about the planning committee. They're very capable. I normally go to the planning committees, but I was absent this time. And the reason was that I've done between Monday and today, I've done something I've wanted to do for years, and I attended a basic beginner's course in learning Polish.
Yeah. Brilliant. Can I echo that I was not at the last planning committee meeting. I'm not a member of the committee, but I was lucky enough to attend the previous meeting, and I echo entirely what's been said. Councillor Sutton.
It is with grave disappointment that I have to announce that the next planning committee meeting has been cancelled.
Yeah, that's it's entirely because there was only one item on the Anything deferred? Okay. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm from the New Croco Club. I'm here to speak to item 6 now, was 8.
So what I will do is I will call upon you at item 6. I didn't really get that.
I'm just observing a very good council meeting.
Oh, thank you.
You come to the wrong place.
I've seen far worse.
You man.
It's about the leases on the war fund with Marie.
Okay, cool. Yes, sir.
This business of the public having to leave meetings, is it right that this law was passed in 1960?
I don't
It
know.
doesn't say, what did I misread it? It says on the thing, something about 1960.
May well be, but I don't know this precise date. It's a long established.
Yes, the
Yeah.
public wishes to.
Well, and then about time the law was changed, I mean, it's ridiculous, a 60-year-old law running, making the rules of what we can and can't do with this 60 years later.
We have that power.
Eh?
We have the power to change the law.
Well, you can if you want, just ignore it. I mean, we're going by some of that. Born, I should think, wasn't even born when the law was made.
Yes, you're quite right. I think might find we're governed by many rules that were written long ago, and some of them are useful and some of them are quite old-fashioned. I do understand that. You, sir, would you like to say something? Okay, yes, sir.
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask again if it's been possible, how you found out whether ex-councillor Good, is still going to carry on with the neighbourhood plan.
I'm afraid I've had no communication with Council Good over the summer. Have you had any communications?
I haven't, and certainly haven't heard from her that she's interested in carrying on. We haven't had the opportunity to consider how that process is going to be carried forward, but it does need to be.
Yeah, now that we've got past August, I think we do need to revisit that as a matter of course, because this gentleman's now asked me this 3 times now, I think. And I said the first time we were trying to find out, but unfortunately, lots of other things have got in the way, and I do apologise. But yes, we shall consider that.
Could I also mention that I would be interested in speaking on the new item 6, possible.
The view croquet club one. Yep. Okay, I shall remember that. Would you like to say something, sir?
Oh, good evening. Have you had meetings with the Climate Change Committee Partnership?
Yes, I've had many meetings during the summer, what I call the summer holidays. During August, I've had many meetings.
Well, that's to do with the tide rising in Bude, summaries and crooklets. Well, if it is, why isn't it affecting Northcote Mouth and Woodmouth Bay?
Unfortunately, I wish it had have been about those things. It was the meetings that I was having with BCP was largely about what you would call operational and governance issues. But I agree with you that there needs to come a point where we actually start looking at some of those issues that were raised and looking into the possibilities of how we can adapt to them and the rest.
Well, the thing is, back in 1982-83 winter, I worked on Bude Breakwater for a company called E. Thomas, who were subsidiaries of London John Mullins.
Yeah.
And we pumped 250 ton of liquid cement into the breakwater, drilled those into the breakwater, and have clogged up the breakwater now because the engineer that designed the breakwater that's here now sloped the seaside steadier than the land side.
Yeah.
And when we were kids, you could stand on top of the breakwater on a 15-foot tide and it wouldn't reach you.
Yeah.
Now you look now,
It's
boats have been sunk on their moorings. You just will not have the breakwater there now because I've got photos on my phone that I took off Facebook from a visitor that's been coming here 25 years. And she took photos of this sea now, which is horrendous. Because why isn't it affected Plymouth Bay and Northcote? Because Northcote Cottage and sunken garden is in a pit.
Mm.
And you look at Crooklets, do you know why Crooklets has a problem?
I've been told various versions. One of the things I've been told is the frontage is actually artificially holding back things, and if it wasn't there, the water would have come in a long time ago. And the worry about coastal erosion is that could collapse, and if that collapsed, then there would be a significant quick change. But I'm no expert. That's what I've been told.
Well, years ago, the council used to have local plant hire firms come down to Crooklets and use machines to remove the gravel, drag it back and disperse it. And the tide never come up. Now, you can only see one step where you go down into Crooklets Beach because it's covered with gravel that's got so high and got out the cafe when you get a big tide and the wind behind it.
Yeah.
Because I notified Cornwall County Council about having machines there removing that gravel to bring the tide down.
Yeah.
And they said they haven't got the money to do it. Well, their chief executive's on 200,000 a year. Because every councillor is on 16,000 salary plus perks. So no wonder they got no money to look after Bude. Because Crooklets is a serious thing, and so is Bude. The river now here is got so high because of the tide coming over the breakwater and pushing the river back up.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is that breakwater was ruined back in 1982 because the engineer was brilliant when he filled that breakwater up with sea gravel. When we were kids, you could stand on the top and the waves would come up the breakwater and you could hear it suck into the breakwater, and then the water would come out the land side. And that weight of water in the breakwater held the breakwater.
It's a really clever design.
But the council decided, oh, we're not going to bother taking the cap off now and filling it up with gravel, we'll fill it up with concrete. And you look to the seaside now, we poured hundreds of tons of ready mix in amongst all the rocks on the seaside.
Yeah.
So now what does the wave do? Go straight up over the breakwater and fill up the harbour and back the river.
I do know that, well, I'm no expert. I know that there are other places where they put what they call rock armour in place, but that, is piles and piles of rock that they pile up. But this is a really complex thing, but I think one of the telling things you referred to was money. I think central government, which is the people who really do have the money because these things cost, I think really we do need to try and reach out to them and get them to invest.
Well, why can't the council put money towards removing the gravel from Crooklets that's causing this problem down there?
I don't know the answer to that. I suspect it's because we don't own that land.
Do you know what they said to me?
What did they say?
Oh, well, it's not endangering anybody's lives. I said, well, you tell that to the owner of the cafe then, when he gets flooded.
And it's not just, it's lives and livelihoods, isn't it? Yeah.
You want to lose somebody's life before they decide to do something?
Yeah. I've been answering this gentleman quite a bit. I was wondering if anybody else wanted to contribute. Councillor Sullivan?
Well, I wanted to address something from the previous ordinary meeting, rather than that, if that discussion is concluded. Because at the last meeting, if you remember, Mr. Bennett raised a very interesting point about changing the name of the parish or council. And I have looked into it as promised, and it's actually a very, very simple process. It occupies one sentence in section 75 of the Local Government Act 1972, and it reads, at the request of the parish council, the council of the district in which the parish is situated may change the name of the parish. Simple. I did, rightly or wrongly, put this out on social media, and the reaction was not positive. I saw that. Putting it politely. But there was, among there was a couple of, I'm sure, actually, there was some very poignant, made sense that actually, you know, the name of Stratton is very important to people like yourself who live there. But in terms of recognition, then viewed as has become, right or wrong, it has become the more well-known town. So unfortunately, if Facebook is anything to go by, I don't think there'll be change anytime soon. But changing names of councils and that is fairly unusual. But fun enough, only Tuesday evening this week, Tewkesbury Borough Council voted to change its name to North Gloucestershire Borough Council. And one of the things that might be of interest, because it was raised on the social media posting, was that they've allocated £10,000 from their budget to cover. Well, that's a borough council, obviously, it's much bigger. So, and it might be interesting. Sorry, one parish that did change its name in the past few years was the parish of Hanford in Cheshire. Hanford was famous for the Jackie Weaver.
Notorious, yes.
You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver incident.
Yeah.
They changed them, but that was purely a change of name from Hanford Parish Council to Hanford Town Council. And I just like to give it as a kind of a light-hearted one, give you one other little ditty of information. Was that some years ago there was a request from a group of local members of the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, made a request to parish in Dorset called Wool for name change. They invited, or asked the clerk if there could be an item on the agenda for a meeting to consider changing it, the name to Vegan Wool.
Yes, yes. What's in the name? There's a lot in the
One
name.
other one was there's no reports of anybody requesting a name change for the parish of Ham in Wiltshire.
I'd just like to finish. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
To sort it out. It's just general knowledge.
I think local knowledge is absolutely essential. I agree, and I think money. Yeah. Okay, right. We're now moving on to item 1, to receive apologies and accept the reasons for not attending.
Yes, so we've had apologies from Councillor Hannah, who's not well, and from Councillors Browning, Quinton and Horrocks Turner, for personal reasons.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, we have to accept those and never remember this. I propose we accept those. I propose we accept those. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Yeah. Number 2, to receive any declarations of interest on items. Oh, sorry.
So I did submit a dispensation form.
Yes, definitely. I was just about to get to that.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to the next agenda item.
No, item 2, it is the next one, sir.
I beg your pardon.
That's okay. That's okay. To receive any declarations, how are you, by the way?
I've got a stiff neck.
Councillor Roy?
So I beg your pardon, I'm multitasking, I can't use my vision as well as I used to be able to.
I just wanted to say, I'm really glad to see you.
Thank you.
I do understand your circumstances.
Yes, I sort of have to point my whole body
Got it.
these days.
Got it. So item 2 is to receive any declarations of interest on the agenda and agree any dispensation. Excuse me, I'm afraid we've got a meeting here. When we are talking, I'm afraid I must ask you to stay quiet. Thank you very much.
Okay, hush, hush.
Thank you. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, I have become aware that I have a extended family member who has a connection with the wharf business units, and I no longer feel it appropriate for me to enter into those discussions or thoughts.
very much. Would you like to speak to the declaration, the request for dispensation part? We've had one.
We have from Councillor Roy. Does everyone have copies of that? I can't remember.
No.
Right. No, I mean, if Councillor Roy can present his reasons, that would be fine.
Oh. I haven't got the form in front of me, so I can't remember what I read. Right. So I wasn't expecting to have to do this. Right, so I've sent a request to the town clerk in order to seek a dispensation for any items that might include discussions that involve Bude Area Tourist Board. So for the sake of clarity, I think you all know around this table that I'm the director of Bude Area Tourist Board, which runs the TIC. It's called a non-executive director. It's a non-paid position. I don't take any expenses or anything. I just give my time freely to help the board be a legally constituted board. There are links, of course, with Bude Climate Partnership because Bude Area Tourist Board is one of the delivery partners, and it was suggested in that code of complaint that I had a potential conflict of interest. The complaint found I didn't have a conflict of interest, but I just want to be absolutely belt and braces here, make sure that everyone around this table knows my position, and that if any agenda items that are tabled actually do have a direct financial impact on the activities of Bude Area Tourist Board, I would of course declare that interest at that point and leave the meeting. And I felt confident when I was responding to the Code of Conduct complaint that all the items on the table didn't actually have a direct impact on Bude Area Tourist Board. So in a nutshell, that's the reason for the dispensation. There's a little bit of small print in there. I'll read it out to you if you want, but it probably isn't necessary.
Okay. I propose that we agree with the dispensation that you've asked for. Do I have a second?
Just for clarity, is that a dispensation to speak but not vote, or speak and vote?
Sorry, both.
Both, okay.
Okay, do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Dawn. Okay, all those in favour?
Sorry. Are you saying that you want a dispensation to be able to speak and vote on any item that has got
Yes.
Bude Area Tourist?
Yes, because I think it's important that I'm able to represent those items as a councillor. Right, but what I would back that up with is if there is a financial pecuniary interest, then I would of course withdraw.
So
Is everybody clear what they're voting on? Okay. All those in favour? Unanimous? Thank you very much. Moving on to receive the Mayor's report. So this is me. This month I've been involved in a variety of public duties and many behind the scenes meetings. Alongside fellow councillors, I welcomed our new MP, Ben Maguire, and informed to the Town Council and informed him that while our town and surrounding parishes can be idyllic and rich places to live, there were many difficulties facing the people of Bude-Stratton, particularly high rates of hidden poverty, to which nearly 2/3 of the Bude area population are classed amongst the 20% most deprived in the country with regard to housing and the availability of key services. More than 1/3 of all children in North Cornwall are living in poverty. Parts of Bude-Stratton and the surrounding parishes have higher levels of poverty than any other Cornish rural area, and also have the third highest level of child poverty in Cornwall, with only the urban areas of Penryn and Penzance scoring higher. And while Bude-Stratton is a hustling place where people work hard, it experiences an economic boom during summer, but our community also experiences a recession every winter. I also informed him of the many actions BSTC had taken to alleviate these issues and to improve community life in our town, but how? We're also very aware of the limited ability of a town council to tackle inequalities within our community, resulting from national and global politics. With this in mind, I hoped that he could highlight in Parliament that the people of Bude-Stratton need greater support from central government to tackle poverty in our area. Also, with other councillors, I attended a HARIT workshop, which HARIT stands for Heritage at Risk Information Tool, where we were shown details of the high number of heritage sites in Bude-Stratton at risk from coastal erosion, more extreme weather and flooding from both sea and rivers in particular. I suspect future councils will find themselves engaged in difficult decisions to see what can be saved. I also attended a Veterans Hub meeting where many difficulties facing our armed forces veterans were discussed and ways that a variety of groups and institutions, including BSTC, could potentially support members in our community who are experiencing these issues. I hope this and other initiatives can become established in our town and local area. I was also honoured to join Councillor Daw in opening Bude Carnival and was honoured, and also judging of the best floats. And I was honoured to take part in the procession. The following day, I took part in a quiet procession as part of the RNI's Blessing with the Sea ceremony and attended the service, which was really well attended and also quite moving at times. I also joined fellow councillors at a rainy but very busy and enjoyable Holsworthy and Stratton show, and where, to be honest, it was really great to meet up with many familiar faces from across the border. And despite the weather, I think it's something that we really need to pursue. And one of the things we learned is we need a kit of things to take with us to these places. Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed that. Finally, I have spent many hours alongside our officers in meetings over issues which may be largely confidential, but which I will attempt to discuss in a discreet manner later on our agenda. And that's my report. Number 4 on our agenda is to note any reports from Cornwall councillors. And we're lucky, very lucky, to have Lisa Roy here with us today.
I'll take it, but don't go too far. Thank you. Right, so obviously I've been out of action for a few days for the last couple of weeks, but I've had quite a lot of correspondence on the Bude to Oakhampton bus, the number 6. There's some connections being missed recently, so I've been ramping up pressure on Cornwall Council transport team to make sure that they do everything they possibly can to timetable the bus so it does actually make the connection with the Oakhampton train. One of the things that's ongoing at Cornwall Council, that quite a bit of work has been put to with my political group, which is the Independents, not that I want to get party political here, is that a Cornwall Council are preparing a white paper to present to government in order to seek further devolution of ability to run services and make decisions in Cornwall rather than those decisions being made remotely in Westminster. And the two key things, as far as I'm concerned, that I've been pushing really hard on is that we received a very clear message that we didn't want governance in Cornwall to be done by a mayor. So we're continuing with that thread. And also that Cornwall, and this has been going on ever since I've been Cornwall councillor, should receive appropriate and fair funding, which we just don't. If you look at other regions of the country, far more money is given to local authority government, county councils, than is given in Cornwall. We're amongst the lowest. It costs a lot more to deliver services in a rural economy than it does in a city or a town economy. And that's something which I've been pushing very hard on. And you'll all probably remember vaguely hearing something called the Barnett formula, which is something which is used to determine how local governments and our peripheral countries in the United Kingdom are funded. And that Barnett formula is old. Mr. Jennings did mention something about law and statute being, in his opinion, out of date, but that certainly is, in my opinion, is no longer fit for purpose, and that needs to be challenged very strongly. We are receiving very early indications from the new government about housing requirements. We've been told that the expectation on Cornwall for new housing delivery is going to rise very significantly. The current requirement from the central government for Cornwall housing delivery is 2,707 houses per year. That is intended to rise to 4,545. So it's not quite doubling, but it's not far off. And what strikes me, to come back to something which was mentioned earlier about the neighbourhood development plan review, which we haven't done, and that is the only way that we're able to really strongly repel these big developers coming to us and taking over large tracts of land. And I'm very aware that there was a very big housing development of over 500 units, which is on the Backbury land, which we did manage to put off at the last time we came forward. but I sense that could come forward again, and we need to have our thinking caps on and perhaps even accelerate the work that we do with our neighbourhood development plan to make sure we're prepared to make sure that we don't get development in parts of Bude that we don't want. I have to say that Mr. Bennett made some points that I absolutely agree with. I'm probably treading on risky ground here, but instead of central government and funders providing money for talking about climate change, I wish they would actually spend money on things like the breakwater, things like the Sumley's Beach rock armour, which I think could be improved, and things like Crooklets, which needs actually a relatively modest investment, probably to future-proof it for another 40 or 50 years. I have a sense we're giving up far too early on our infrastructure here, and that we could preserve Bude as is for a lot longer, whilst respecting climate change is happening, and we do need to be thinking in the longer term. But I need to be careful about what I say, because I don't want anybody on the receiving end of another 60-page code of conduct. Councillor O'Sullivan, perhaps the opportunity for a name change might be at the next community governance review, which we can have some fun with, I'm sure, next time around. And for anyone that hasn't seen it yet, and this connects with something the Mayor was saying about poverty that we experience in Bude. Simon Reeve did a great piece on BBC a couple of years ago, and he's revisited that very recently, and it's a very sombre watch, and it echoed absolutely with a lot of things that I see going on in Bude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree. Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
I would just clarify that government name changes and governed by the governance review. It's actually a local government act. Yeah. But that wasn't the point I was going to make. The concerning issue about housing, and as some of you will notice, it's been a kind of a bugbear of mine for several years, is that the number of council houses sold off on the right to buy scheme in the last 12 months is twice the number of houses, replacement houses being built. So we're still.
Yep, I am right there with you on that. Councillor Bridges.
I've been reading in Cornwall reports that Cornwall Council is loosely devolving car parks to its arm's length companies, Cormac and Trevette, and they are then selling them on to a company called Initial. And the report says there's 50 car parks in Cornwall that they are planning to move in that direction, whereas town and parish councils are asking for the car parks to be devolved to them. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, whether that's true or it matches your understanding.
So yeah, with your indulgence, yeah, yes, absolutely. You're 80% right in what you're saying. I'd spoken full council against this at the early stages of what they were planning. I was in a long meeting yesterday about it. To my mind, it's an absolutely crazy decision, because, and some people in this room may know, that I grew up in Widmouth Bay, and my parents actually owned the car park at Black Rock. And I'm not giving too much away, that when my dad bought this, he described it within the family as a money-making machine. It was like money for old road. It's fairly easy to do. Now, if a local authority can't make a decent amount of money out of running car parks, they haven't probably got an awful lot of hope to do other stuff. And I made that point. You know, we couldn't organise a thing in a brewery if you can't even run a bleeding car park, and that's my honest opinion, right? And okay, and it goes much deeper than this, because at the moment, my principle is if you have a local authority, you've got a very basic principle of a local authority can act on behalf of its community. So if you're talking about somebody's car park at the minute, I saw in the 6 weeks being absolutely clogged up. I saw people parking in crazy places. That place needs management. And we need alternative plans. We need to really think carefully about how we are delivering car parking in Bude. The moment you devolve something to a private company, they will only ever act in the interest of their shareholders, because that's what they're meant to do. You can't blame them for that. That's what they're there to do. So you can expect that whatever problems we've got now, if this goes through, which I can't imagine it won't, that all the problems we've got will just get an awful lot worse. And I think it's a bloody awful proposition, which is damning on the council, if I'm blunt.
Councillor Sutherland, sorry.
So my understanding from the report was that the company that they're talking about selling the car parks to makes 100% of its profits on fines.
Fine.
Right, okay. So I can answer, I'll make it as brief as I possibly can. Right, so the car parks, the reason that the car parks need to be devolved to an arm's length company is that for some reason that is set by local central government, councils cannot use automatic number plate recognition systems, but private companies can. So if the car parks are devolved to Cormac, which is effectively a private company, they can use AMPR, right, and they will then outsource the enforcement to Initial or another company. I don't think that's settled, so I probably shouldn't have even said that. It will be a private company that will do the enforcement. The intention is that they will make their income from the enforcement, right? But on top of that, they will also receive, I believe, 50% of any enhanced car park take. So they'll set a base level now, but if the car park takes more money, they'll get 50% as well as all the enforcement. I personally, I think it's a rubbish decision. I've made that point very clear at council.
Councillor Sutherland, coming to you now, and then you, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, well, Councillor Bryce actually made the point I was coming to because we had this discussion at Palstock regarding the Bay car park, and my understanding is that it's the enforcement, it's the devolving the fine, the illegal parking longer than the parking, and it's not as simple as it sounds. It's not that they're just giving away the car park income. It's just the companies, as Councillor Bryce said, would make their money from the fines, not from the parking itself.
Yeah. Councillor Cole.
I know a little bit about car parks because I used to have it as a part of my brief many years ago, and I can tell you that as far as the old North Cornwall District Council was concerned, the best car park to have was Boscastle, and a very close second was Woodmouth, and a very close third was Summerleys, and then the Crescent and Crookwoods came after that. And if you took Bude as a whole, Bude car parks were more than 50% of the total car park revenue for the old North Cornwall District Council, which, okay, it didn't have places like Newquay and Truro, but it was still a fair chunk of corner. And a lot of money came off those car parks. As far as enforcement is concerned, the issue with enforcement is, I might be out of date on this, but it used to be, and I think still is, that as a local authority, you can actually go through the criminal court to prosecute people for illegally parking or not paying their parking fees. And that is quite a good thing to, quite a strong deterrent. And it's hardly ever done because it's a reasonably costly thing, but it could be done. And it would shake people up when they've got to rock up to a magistrate's court. If you are a private company, you can't do that. You have to pursue it through the civil court. And that's where all this garbage comes in, because when you get a fine for a parking infringement in a private car park, it is not a fine, it is an invoice. If you then refuse to pay that invoice, you effectively get taken through a small claims procedure. And the reason why the private companies make more money out of the parking than the council will is because they're completely unreasonable. They won't accept excuses. They won't even accept evidence in all cases. They push to the nth degree. They often don't actually take people to court, but they threaten to, and at each step of the way, they wang on hundreds of percent of administration charges. So your initial 15 or 20 or 30 pound fine becomes very quickly 500 pound invoice that they're claiming money for. So it's all a racket. It's a legalised racket. There are big companies involved, big donors to well-known political parties involved. But if Cornwall Council is going down the route of bringing in this racket, then I think we should all be very much up in arms about it.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan, this is the last time.
No, I think it's very rare that Councillor O'Brien might have more information on this, but I think it's very rare that a private car park owner will pursue their own way, because sometimes it's only £150, and I think that they put on these surcharges. If you just ignore them, they don't get pursued. And I just wonder what how that will affect if the enforcement is offloaded to a private company. Will that affect the ability to pursue as a criminal?
Yes, I'm not sure you'd be able, that's quite technical.
No, I know.
I think we'll let you off on that one, but it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, okay. Right, we now moving on to the minutes. So, first off, 5A, full council to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of August 2024 and the extraordinary full council meeting held on the 19th of August 2024. I hope you've all had a chance to read them. I'm looking for a proposer. Thank you, Councillor Colwell, and seconder. Okay, all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I apologise. Then I understand why you might have done that. I didn't know, so that's me going too fast again. 5B, committees to receive the notes and minutes of the committee meetings listed below. 1, planning, do we take all these together, don't we? Or one at a time?
Because it's planning, but then the other separately.
Okay, so 1 and 2 are the planning committee meetings on the 3rd, 17th, 31st, 14th and 28th of August. I hope you've seen them. I need somebody to propose. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Somebody else to second. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Those abstaining? Okay. Number 3. Now we go to the Facilities and Environmental Services meeting on the 11th of July 2024. I need somebody to propose. Thank you, Councillor Colwell. Somebody to second. All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? Okay. And number 4, Corporate and Democratic Services Committee, 18th of July 2024. Somebody to propose? Thank you, Councillor Morris. Somebody to second? Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? All those abstaining? Thank you very much. And finally, 5, Cultural and Heritage Services Committee, 25th of July 2024. Any proposer? Thank you. And seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? Thank you. Right, those are complete. So we completed number 5. We're now going to move on to what was number 8 on your original agenda. This is the 6th thing that we're discussing. This is to consider requests from Bude Croquet Club relating to their lease and premises. Now, Fiona, would you like to give us a briefing on this?
Yes, so I hope you've all had a chance to read the paper and understand what's being asked of you by the Croquet Club. I know that you're in attendance as well. I'd like to speak to you in a few moments. But we have been approached sort of with 4 aspects to the request. The first one being the issue of connections at the existing building related to water, electricity and sewage connections, as they would sort of like to advance and just improve the facilities that they have. There are also some issues in relation to improving the lawns that are there, so some old leftover bits from the old tennis net connections that were there have to be removed to smooth the lawn. Also, in terms of water logging and drainage, they've had to do some work to that themselves. And again, with all of this in mind, and the work that they're proposing, they're asking for a long release of the consideration of the lease extension. The lease was last renewed last year for a 10-year period, so there are still 9 years, is that correct? 9 years full to run. But I think given the work they're proposing, they're just seeking some surety of duration. The legal implications, we've sort of dotted them down as being the obvious one being planning, and that's the existing building. When it was mooted much before my time within the council, I know this was heavily discussed, I've been told, and I've seen some of the minutes. So that needs sort of to be decided upon and considered, and how that would work sort of within the council and what the proposals are from the club. And the downs themselves are, you know, they have been left to the council to run as pleasure grounds, as they are referred to in the deeds. And there's always a hefty responsibility to consider any sort of permanent infrastructure being placed on the downs, that the councillors always take very seriously when a request of this nature is made. The options put down are simply just to consider the points in turn, whether they can apply for the existing planning to be amended as a starter point, if that's something that's open to the councillors. If approved, for them to then make investigations as to whether or not this is actually a feasible plan and how it will work. The club are changing their status to a CAS, to Community Amateur Sports Club. In the process of doing so, have been aware of some funding becoming available to them. They believe could fund quite a lot of the work that they've done, all of the work, as I believe, that can be done. And in terms of the lease, as I said, it was recently done, but it would need obviously then to be taken back and just extended potentially if the council were so minded. So those are the points for consideration. There are several of them within the paper, so I believe the club would also like to speak. Would you like to hear from them first or questions?
Yes, I would. That's where I was going. So there are people here from the Croquet Club. Would you like to say something?
Thank you. Hello, I'm Martin French, the Secretary of Bude Croquet Club. The club is a successful and growing asset of Bude-Stratton. Since we built our clubhouse last year, the membership has gone up by more than 20%. We have a large U3A group of 20 members that visit twice a month. We have a group from Bude-Haven come in July, which is very welcome. And we get summer visitors too. We've entered the South West Croquet Federation's League for the first time this year and won the Cornwall and Devon area, and we're playing the Dorset winners next week. We've just registered on Tuesday as a community amateur sports club because a private benefactor has offered us a charitable donation to allow us to make these significant improvements. These need not cost the council anything, because we would be happy to pay the council's legal fees in extending the lease. We're particularly concerned to limit our impact on the downs. We understand the sensitivity of the downs. The lawn improvements will cause only limited and short-lived disruption, and once complete, no difference will be visible. It's just improving the surface here and there where there are problems, and the drainage in one corner. The sewer from the pitch and putt building runs within 1 metre of the back of our clubhouse and is very shallow. So it's a very simple job to connect to that. We hope to extend a water pipe and electricity cable with sub-meters, of course, from the pitch and putt building to our clubhouse. These can be run in the same small trench and will be invisible once the grass has grown back over. And the most important thing in many ways is we can provide the WC within our existing clubhouse. There is a store room that came as part of the log cabin. We can turn that into a toilet. There will be no external changes at all. We don't need to put a window in it. We can put a fan and so on. So these changes would require connections to the ground, which are not allowed in our clubhouse planning approval. So if you feel able to support our plans, then we'll apply for a non-material amendment to the existing proposal. So no cost to the council, no lasting visible changes to the downs, no change to how we use the facilities that are there. All we need is your approval. We'd really appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the Croquet Club like to say anything? No, okay. In which case, oh, yes, sir.
I'd just like, I did mention to you before, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to.
Oh, yes, you did. I do apologise.
I'd just like to say that I'm against not the Croquet Club, because I think it's wonderful what they've done, utilising the park of Bude, which unfortunately wasn't commercially viable. And they've got on there and they've got people there and it's being used. Fantastic. My problem is, again, it's the downs, and there's going to be enough concrete on the downs if the council decide to go forward with their plans. And my particular bent will be that I feel that if you allow this and don't look, if this becomes a permanent building as such with facilities, it won't take long before it becomes something much bigger and something, shall we say, that can withstand the vacancies of time in a more suitable way would be what they'd say, and I'd say it will end up, we'll have another building on the downs, another permanent building on the downs. And I just feel that it's the thin end of the wedge. I've said it many times in council meetings that I don't think there should be anything done to the downs, or as little as possible.
Okay. I do see you've got your hands up, but before I come to you, these individuals did ask if they could speak to this item at this time. I would now like to move to councillors, and once you've heard councillors, then I will come back to you. Okay? Okay? Yeah.
Okay.
So, Councillor Cole.
Yeah, I used to be an absolutist about the downs. I used to believe that one teaspoonful of concrete on the downs was a teaspoonful too many, and I was vocal in opposition of anything that would sort of impact on the downs. I've softened a bit, and I am now supportive of the real sports facility, or skate park as it's widely known. This one, it is, in some ways, it does seem a little bit dog in the manger to say, well, you cannot connect to the sewer if somebody needs to do what they need to do up there. And you can't have electricity, you just got to get on with what is effectively a glorified garden shed when other facilities are easily within reach and could be provided with no cost to council and minimal disruption. So I am sort of minded to support what is in front of us, but also to very strongly say that's where it stops. There won't be a concrete block building up there. There won't be anything that is a permanent building up there. And I'm also minded to say, if this is all being funded through a legacy or a benefactor of some kind, I don't really see any reason to extend the lease of the Croquet Club. They've got a substantial period of time up there where they can make use of electricity and plumbing, and I don't think that this proposal should mean that we extend that on into the future.
Okay, thank you. I'll go next to Councillor Bright, and then Sean, I'll go to you after.
So many times when I'm talking to visitors that come to Bude, they say one of the big draws is the sense of space around you, and the fact that we never developed our seafront, that it's all open green area. I am supportive of the skate park. Probably Mr. Curry wouldn't thank me for that, but I am, because it gives an otherwise forgotten section of our youth a really decent facility to go and use, right? But I think there is a drip feed effect perhaps here that we need to be really, really careful of. The original planning permission and permissions that the council gave to the croquet club for this particular building was made at a time when there was a tenant in the pitch and putt facility that wasn't particularly cooperative to the pitch and putt club. And I can understand why we probably went a bit further than we would have really wanted to accommodate the croquet club at that point. Excuse me. To connect a building that currently is a wooden structure, not connected to the ground, without electricity, without sewage, without water, does make it a permanent structure. There's no other way around it. That is absolutely what it is will be. And I can absolutely see that in 3 years' time, they might want to extend it a bit more, and they'd have a very good reason to perhaps come to us and expect us to accommodate that. At this point in time, what I want to say, sorry, I should be addressing this through you. Beg your pardon. What I want to say is,
point yourself in whatever direction you want.
yeah, it's a bit, you can be directional, but what I want to say is, at the moment, we do have the pitch and putt building, which is highly underutilised, which is already there. And I would very much favour us having a much better conversation with the croquet club to see if we can accommodate their needs by better using the buildings that we've already got. I'm sure we could.
Thank you. Sean.
So I'm quite interested in planning. This is one that came through the planning committee and I was quite uncomfortable about at the time, but because it was an inclement weather shelter, and it was very expressly given permission on the grounds that it wouldn't be connected to sewage, water, everything that is kind of being proposed. I didn't object to it at the time. This proposal in front of me, I feel really uncomfortable about. I would say we actually have two highly underused, fully accessible buildings on the downs, one of which is the cricket pavilion. And I think as a community, we need to get a little bit better at utilising community assets collectively rather than seeing things in silos. And basically, yeah, the current pitch and putt building is a couple of 100 metres from where the croquet lawns are. I'm supportive of the groundworks that have been proposed. If that makes the playing space more appropriate for the users, I think that's great. And if that work can be done in a kind of really sensitive way, then that would be great. But I have a really strong objection to putting in a toilet into the inclement weather shelter because, yeah, we have enough really good facilities in a very close quarter to this area at the moment, and yeah, it just feels too much. I also feel like the lease extension, in my perception, is potentially not needed. That is so recent. We only talked about that last year, so a 10-year lease on that bit of ground is pretty hefty. So yeah, the groundworks I'm fine with. I'm not comfortable with the proposal for the connections to the shelter, and I think, yeah, as Pete said, a better conversation with all the users of our community assets, I think, is what we need to do, and be a bit more open about how we approach the use of our existing buildings, because we've got some lovely things that could be used better. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Vicky next, then Kate.
I'm against it. I've seen the croquet club develop over the years, and you've done great guns with everything and started to play in the league. Absolutely fabulous. Really like that part of it. But what I don't like is a temporary structure becoming a permanent structure on what are our downs, which, as Councillor McBroy said, are valued by not only the people of Bude, but the many people who come to Bude. It would start being the thin end of the wedge. We've seen it with the cricket club, how those of us who remember the cricket club as a small shack is now quite a big building, which has expanded over the years. We have the pitch and putt building, which the croquet club was originally in. That, to me, is the ideal situation. They've got a lovely elevated position there to watch people playing, particularly to watch matches. They've got all the facilities they need in there. Why add more infrastructure, more digging up, what have you, on the downs when it's not needed.
Vicky.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to take
So, a couple of things. I've got a different opinion to probably most people around the table. From what I can read, there are no changes to the building as it is. The building is not going to be made bigger, and I'm sure that we could put something in that says the building isn't going to be made any bigger. That piece of land, I'm looking at a map, it's already being used for that. There's already that building on there. People have mentioned the pitch and putt building. That's already earmarked for the youth facility, and you cannot have a youth facility that is then being used shared by other organisations, especially majority adults, I imagine. I would look forward to hearing your youth plans as well. That would be very interesting to me. So the pitch and putt is a no-no. You can't, that's not even something that you can consider. So my thoughts is that we should be supporting this. If it's something that is grown and is continuing to grow, it's a good thing for Bude. If we turn around and say, no, sorry, you can't have it, you just continue with your shack with no facilities, they're going to go elsewhere and they may not stay in Bude, and then we've lost that forever. Yes, okay, we need to protect stands, and I'm not saying that I'm going to stick my hand up and allow every Tom, Dick and Harry to start building on there, because I'm not going to do that. There's already a building there that isn't being made bigger. They're not building a new building. They're not extending that building. And we could put something in place to say, well, we'll agree to allow you to have electric and water, but you can't extend your building. I think that's a much fairer option than just saying, no way. We should be supporting these groups and these, yeah. So I think it's already there, and as long as they don't make it bigger, worse, more, then go for it. But pitch and putt building is out. That's, if you're going to have the youth facility there, you cannot have another adult group sharing that facility. That's not allowed. So,
Mike.
Obviously, we both looked at each other before she started speaking, and we both knew we were going to say the same thing. This council resolved to explore the opportunity of putting a youth facility in the pitch and putt building. So it's quite disappointing to hear several people suggest that we now put the Croquet Club in there, because the youth are a forgotten demographic in this town. Youth provision is incredibly important. The Croquet Club, I played a big role in getting them in there in the first place, because I also do sports as well as youth facility. Both find myself with the two things I'm responsible for almost clashing, but there's no need for that to happen, I don't think. As Katie has said, you know, the youth facility, we're exploring the opportunities with the pitch and putt building, so I think we need to set that idea aside. Yeah. We did set a hard line in that there would be no permanent structure there, so I'm kind of,
terms,
yeah.
the income of those services tips it. That's the.
Yes, that's where I'm now stuck, because obviously I wanted to throw my support behind the sports facility, but I spent a lot of time on the planning committee. I'm not there anymore, and I'm acutely aware of, if we allow this, the game changes.
Thank you, Peter.
So I just wanted, I don't normally like disagreeing with Councillor Dawn, because he's normally excellent on everything. But the building can have more than one occupant and more than one user. It's entirely possible that perhaps timetabling could allow for use at times by the Croquet Club. And I also think that, you know, when I was talking about conversations, we also need to be talking to the Cricket Club, because I don't think that building is used much at all in the spirit of which we thought it would be when we built it. So I think that there is potential to try to get these parties together to timetable uses of the buildings for different purposes, and thinking that the pitch and putt building would have exclusive use for one thing and one thing only, I think is probably a fairly arrogant way of looking at it.
Before you do, Kevin, I'll come to you in a minute. Yeah, I'd like to say something.
I have a fairly poignant legal point on the cricket club. They are leased, they have exclusive possession, that building is theirs until 2039. We have no rights, we cannot go take a lease back for that cause, we can't seek to vary a lease for that cause. So I think you'd be struggling to make that approach.
In fairness, I'm not suggesting we would do that. We could facilitate a conversation.
Okay. And before I come to you, Kevin, you've been very patient, and then Michael wants to decide.
I appreciate Councillor Boyd saying I'm usually excellent, and I take the tap on the wrist as intended. I'm not entirely sure how fully briefed in the rest of the council are on the plans in regards to the youth facility, but we did look at timetabling, not just having a youth facility, but opening it up to lots and lots of youth groups that are looking for facilities. So we're already looking at, well, we've had several expressions of interest. It's not inconceivable that the croquet club could also be part of that conversation.
Miniature park house was one phrase.
Exactly. That was how I think I described it to you, was, and you're seasonal as well, aren't you?
No.
No, all year round.
We have winter, sorry.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We have 4 club sessions a week, all year round. We run a winter and a summer series of half-day tournaments on Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Sunday, and they run all year round as well.
Right.
We struggle. There are days when there's no one there. Can't predict when they'll be, because we get matches against Barnstaple, Plymouth, St Agnes, and so on. And they 3 or 4 times a year. I think it would be quite difficult. And also, practical point, the cricket clubs, a long walk away from our lawns.
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin, you go.
If there's a toilet in my garden shed, which there isn't, but if there's electric in my garden shed, which there is, it still doesn't stop it being a garden shed. We have the ownership of this ground. We lease this out to the croquet club. They've got it for 9 years. Are we going to make them have a shed with no electric and no plumbing in it and tell them to crack on with it? Because that's basically one option. Because I don't really think shared use, etc., will ever work, because there will be premium days, Saturday afternoons or whatever, when everybody will want to be in the nice building and everybody will have access to the toilet and electric and goodness knows what. So I think shared use is a complete red herring. It is a case of, do we make them stay in a shed that's going to be there for 9 years anyway, in the dark, with nowhere to have a wee, or do we allow the plumbing and the electric to be put in? Now, to me, it's a little bit of a no-brainer. If it was going to be about making a concrete building there, if it was going to be throwing hostages to fortune, then I would be against it. But ultimately, people around this table, maybe us, maybe a future council, will decide whether the croquet club continues on into the future in that space, and will have a big input over the building of any genuinely permanent structure. So I think we need to have a little bit of perspective on this.
Tom.
Yeah, I'm listening to both sides here, and I still haven't made up my mind. As we know, planning very often tends to be an incremental affair, and you end up with somewhere where it wasn't always intended at the start. I suppose the safeguard we have here is that we still have control over any planning applications, so we would have to approve any planning application. Doesn't like somebody has a planning permission, various conditions, and then various another condition. So I think that should give us a little bit of reassurance that this is not the thin end of the wedge. So I take all your points, Councillor Deering well made. But I think we have control, and I'm not concerned about that we will end up with some, something that escalates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to ask a planning question. Given that it's our land, presumably we would, we would have to get approval for the planning commission to be requested. Would we then get consulted on the planning commission? Because
Yes.
what I'm wondering is whether we could condition, or we could ask for the condition to be appended to any planning commission to say that.
Yes, we can.
So we could actually, at the point of planning, we could condition that no larger building is
Well, we can, but those conditions can be varied and can be dropped. The guarantee for us is that we own it. So for Bude-Stratton Town Council, Bude-Stratton Town Council owns it. So there can be no application without the council approval. Not, I don't mean approving the planning commission itself, but approving the application. The application process is initially will have to be approved by the council.
Okay. Philip, you wanted to come back. Mike, I did see you with your hand up. Philip.
Yes, I suppose if what we're saying is that even if we put a condition on the planning, that it may in the future end up being dropped. I mean, if the Croquet Club had come to us 3 years ago and said we want to put a building up and we want to put plumbing in, we would have definitely said no. But we said, okay, you can have a building. And now they're back saying we want to put plumbing in the building, and we're kind of humming and hawing about that. And if we say yes, I think there's every chance that somebody will come back in 3 years' time and say, well, come on, it was only reasonable, just to have another extension to it. It seems reasonable to incrementally do it. And so I'm worried about it from that perspective. But I also agree that I wouldn't like to see the lease extended at this point, particularly when we don't know whether planning permission will be granted or those connections will be made. I think us extending the lease ahead of any of that happening is be strange. But I do agree that we should allow the improvements to the rules. That seems sort of fairly sensible to me. To use a piece of the ground that's not being used properly at the moment to actually make it a facility.
I do see you with your hand up, so I will come to you, but I'm conscious that Mike wants to say something, and Peter hasn't had a chance to say anything yet, so I will come to you. I'll go to Peter, but then I'll come to you.
It's unfortunate that Croquet Club finds itself in the position it's in at the moment, because some members around this table now are members that were with the last council, and it was by a narrow majority that effectively the Croquet Club was kicked out of the pitch and putt building to make way for a new tenant, which they subsequently left. Otherwise, those buildings probably wouldn't be there at all. But it was a harmonious relationship between the Croquet Club and the then council running the pitch and putt facility. It worked quite well. So, but as has already been said, the buildings are there and they can still be there in 10 years' time, whatever it is. And making what's it called, a non-material amendment to the existing permission, which I presume is the connections, it's not going to visually impact anything. And I can somewhat see the slippery slope thing of, well, we wouldn't give permission if it had been that request before, but we are where we are now, the buildings are there. So I can't see that obstructing the request is prudent. In the interests of the club or the people who use the facility. Well, I don't know if there's a proposal going to be drafted soon, but I think there's a bit more discussion yet. But I can't see a problem with it, to be honest, and also extending the lease, because there needs to be some sort of security of tenure for that amount of effort that's going in. It's not easy looking after grass and stuff. I appreciate that there's a lot of work that is done. And to be perhaps a future council, not this council, might turf out people that have done all the improvements would be very upsetting, I should imagine. So I think that's what I have to say really on it.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, I was just going back to that consultation we did on the downs. And, you know, one of the big things was that people wanted it to be a community space used by people, and the Croquet Club have gone in there, and, you know, as we've heard, they've increased their membership by 20% this year. I've gone down a few times and very impressed with what they've done, and it's one of the things I'm very glad I supported to get going. And with that, and please don't take this the wrong way, they're at the upper end of the age spectrum and maybe not quite as sprightly, so running down the Crookbridge toilets and things like that. So with that in mind, I think the lesser of two evils, quite possibly, you know, as Peter said, it's an extension of a bit of underground services. We do hold the ultimate veto on that land. It's not like they can go to formal council and take the planning permission and we would have no say on it. So, as Tom pointed out, that does give me a level of comfort. So I'm inclined to support it. Possibly not the 25-year lease if that was going to be a choke point for people.
Right. Okay. You wanted to come back on something that was said, sir?
Thank you. I had previous experience in this field in that I've been secretary of Ipswich Croquet Club both during the 1980s and the 2010s. That club comes from a town 10 times the size of Bude, has double the number of members, which suggests we're doing quite well. But that survived with double the number of members quite well in a wooden log cabin, 5 metres square. We've got a wooden log cabin here, which is 8.5 by 3.5. So I don't see any need, and I don't see any need in the longer term to extend the building. I'm very happy that either in the lease or whatever to put conditions in that we can't ever come back to extend or change the building. There's no need. You're not going to want a jacuzzi.
Okay, there are two members of the public who wanted to speak, but I did say that I would give all councillors a chance to talk. Is there any other councillors that wish to say anything before I asked those? Jackie?
That's a tiny wee point. I'm still torn. But could we have it written into the minutes for future councillors that there was concern about the shoot or you know, some better way of pushing that, so that it can be looked back on and referred to in years to come. It's actually noted in the minutes that we had concerns over future development. Is that possible?
10 o'clock. Could something like that be put in the minutes and would it have like?
It can certainly be included as part of
It's just a discussion, it's not saying it can't ever be left on,
But this was the view of the council at the time, perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Peter, then.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question, because if you're going to connect that building to the public sewer and have a water connection and a power connection, currently the building is conditioned not to be attached to the ground. But I'm guessing that it would have to be attached to the ground in order for those facilities to be supplied or the services to be supplied. And I imagine that the only way of attaching it to the ground would be to put some form of concrete foundation in. I just wanted to see some sort of clarification on that.
Could you respond to that?
I believe the only connection needed to the ground is the cable, the pipe, and the bigger pipe for the sewer. We would not anticipate any need to change. At the moment, it's sitting on some concrete blocks, and I'm not expecting that need to be changed at all.
Yeah, Peter's thrown my brain up, and I was just thinking about some of the toilets I used in the army, and it's debatable whether they were connected to this century. And I completely forgot what I was going to say, if I'm honest with you. Oh, sorry, it was to address Jackie's point. Yeah, we could record it in the minutes, but it would probably carry more weight if we actually mentioned it within any kind of proposal that we put through. In that we do the same way we do in planning when we say we support it, but we are concerned about the extension of the street scene. So we could word a proposal where that went through, and then any time it came back, that would be brought forward, so whether it's us that sits on it or another council in the future, they would have reference to the decision made.
Vicky, then Tom.
If it does go through, and the way I understand it, it would change it from a temporary to a permanent thing. Is it possible to write it into the lease that no other improvements can be made to it? Because will the next thing be installation and?
Yeah.
The lease as signed is finalised, but we were able to make some sort of agreed addendum amendments. We could have a secondary sort of, a letter of agreement by all parties, or we could, I mean, I don't have the word copy of the lease, but I'm sure it's get from solicitors and ask, but it would then have to be re-sealed, re-signed, that kind of thing. Or as I said, if they're happy with an addendum on the back, we could look to do that.
Okay. Tom, then Peter.
Yeah, Councillor Bright has raised an interesting point there, which has sort of got me thinking a bit, because if we approve the Croquet Club to apply for planning permission, and then they find that certain changes have to be made along the lines of what Peter suggested, it would sort of be out of our hands a little bit. Because we will only be then reduce ourselves to council keys in the planning process.
Peter.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'd be quite a wordy proposal, but to take my fellow councillors' concern, shall I say?
Yeah.
It could be included in the proposal, much in the same way that concerns about future development, that no material amendment is made to the structure as is at present. So then we're just saying that nothing changes, so no aspect of the visual aspect has changed whatsoever. And, in the extension of the lease, if that was proposed, say, no extra on that extension. Quite a concise, but maybe slightly lengthy. It's a bit of an oxymoron, that isn't it? But if not, then.
Before I come to you, John, Fiona wanted to say.
So it's pinged into my brain, I'm a little bit, I was distracted. Leases over 7 years are usually registered, and obviously I wasn't here when it was done, but I would imagine, and I think it is on the title registry, so any amendments that are significantly material, the lease would probably have to be officially redone, but then also re-registered with the land registry for the last bit of it. So it's the next 9 years, sorry, I'm sorry, Stephen. But yes, it is doable, but it would require quite a bit of, work behind the scenes to do it.
Tom.
I'm just wondering at a practical level whether it would be worth considering a pre-planning app first. So that we could.
Whatever you advise is best.
Yeah, I'd be more comfortable if we had a pre-planning advice app. Oh, sorry, if you had.
Would that be common council?
It would, but if we would see a public one, so we can see what the advice the council if we see or nay. We wouldn't, it wouldn't be out of our hands at that stage.
Then Mike, and back to you, sir.
Oh,
sorry, you're up.
I have seen in caravan parks and so on, sort of flexible connections where there is a pipe that comes out of the ground, which will then connect onto the bottom of the caravan with a flexi pipe, and there's no big sort of concrete base on which the caravan sits. And the same we will see at various places, little meterage units where you can plug in, literally plug in outside, physically outside the building with just a wire going in. So the idea that the planning officer will insist that the structure has to sit on some sort of concrete raft in order to have these connections is, I think, a little bit sort of the wrong way of putting it, because I'm sure that with the appropriate types of connections and types of unit, it could be done without a large amount of concrete being poured.
That's the sort of rationale behind the pre-planning process, because that would give us the answers to those questions. Hopefully.
Mike.
Oh, yeah, I think Tom is actually on something there. I think we're all speculating about mission creep, and that the pre-planning app would actually, if we asked questions the right way, we would have fairly definitive answers to some of our concerns. Obviously, it would delay this slightly, but we'd be able to make a much better informed decision.
Can I suggest we take the 4 things one at a time then? So we could say, essentially, the first one is that we want a brief planning app to be put in. The second one is we'd like to understand whether these connections are actually possible and that sort of thing, and what, what damage would be caused to the dams. The third part of it is we could say, yes, we, improvement to the laws of the report, maybe decide whether we want the lease to be extended or not, so just to split them to 4.
Because I think looking for the pre-plan application will give you the downs things, isn't it?
Well, I'm just interested in the connections of electricity, sewer and mains. I mean, the propane class thing, that would be easy to do given the current advice, but I'd like to see something a bit more in writing about that, about what actual, what actual damage potentially would be done if that, or no damage, ideally.
Peter.
Yeah, just saying that a recent experience with the Environment Agency doing the work on the riverbank, they had their porta cabin up on the grass. Well, was the grass, but it was made into gravel, it's back to grass now. But then with temporary connections, their main sewer, water, electricity was put in, all disconnected, all gone. So as Councillor Cole said, it's not a problem. And I mean, worked up at the Fish and Putt in the late 80s and 90s. Any disruption or damage would be quite minimal, and it would soon repair because we put water mains across there and what's. You never know they're there now, so there's no real concern. Detrimental environmental impact. Just like to assure members of that.
Thank you. You, sir.
A thought occurs to me after what's just been said. If the solution here, the practical solution involves temporary, flexible connections for the 3 services, then surely we're no longer changing the requirement of the building not being connected to the ground. So in which case we don't need to have a planning amendment that allows the building to be connected to the ground, which would simplify things for all of us. It would reduce any risk of mission creep.
I think that's probably what we're trying to find out with the pre-app, would be whether we could do that from a sort of planning legal perspective, or whether they would insist on connecting you solidly to the floor, should we say.
Okay.
No pun intended, Peter. Sorry.
I've now heard from, yes, I'm aware you've got your hand up, but Mr. Jennings and Mr. Bennett had their hands up, and I said I would come to them first. I'm just putting it to councillors. I'm just asking them if anybody else wants to say anything, because I think we're close to putting a proposal, probably 3 proposals forward. Is there anybody else wants to say anything before I just open this up to the other members of the public? Vicky?
Only that I wasn't aware how far the youth provision had sort of gone, because I haven't particularly heard anything about it, but
no.
Yeah, because the original idea was to put the youth provision down in the old council offices on Crooklets, next door to the skate park. That was the original.
Yes. Would you like to give an answer to that?
Through the chair, yeah. We explored that, and then we resolved in another meeting to explore using a Fish and Putt building, because the one down at Crooklets
isn't big enough.
That's what isn't big enough. It's goes straight out into a car park, and it needs quite a considerable amount of work just to bring it up to the standard where we can start thinking about putting a youth facility or any other kind of facility in there. Whereas Fish and Putt building, when the part exchange pulled out, we were suddenly like, hold on, there's a ready-made building ready to go there. So we any funding we got could be used entirely on
That building.
the youth facility rather than spending a big chunk of it, just bringing the building up to standard to actually allow people inside. And obviously it's got the outside space on the downs, you've got that half the grass area out there, so it's much more suitable to a youth facility. And then we kind of looked at, as I think I phrased it as a mini park house, whereby yes, it'll be a youth facility, but other youth groups, say the Scouts, the wave riders approach us. They want to do driving training in winter when they're training competition level circus. They want someone to watch videos, talk through techniques, tactics, and all that kind of stuff. So there are plenty of other groups expressed an interest. So it's kind of like, yeah, youth facility, and then also open up to any other community group providing that kind of thing that needs a space indoors from time to time as well. But I haven't actually had an update beyond that.
Is there any way that the toilets could be made accessible to both groups? Because the biggest issue
they are
in
in
the
a
trade.
separate area, all on their own, yeah.
Okay. Just to bring it back to the chair. Are there any other councillors that wish to say anything? Before we move to proposal, I do want to hear what Mr Jennings, Mr Bennett, Mr Barrett have to say. Mr Jennings, you've been incredibly patient. Thank you.
Yes, that's right. I'm just going to say right again, I could never understand from the start why the croquet club never went over with the cricket club. I mean, it's a big building, it's got everything they want, and as far as I can see, they could even play their croquet outside as long as they kept off the square. Well, that's usually do with cricket club, if you do anything but on the square.
It's an interesting perspective. I have no idea.
Well, it's a little bit, you know, they sat there and pathways, it's a big building.
Yep. Mr Bennett.
Thank you. I wonder if I'm missing something, but I know way back years ago, the Downs belonged to the people of Bude, not the council of Bude and Stratton. From the pitching pot up to the headland was for recreational purposes, for people to walk their dogs, kids play football, whatever, tennis or whatever. And they had the pitching pot and the open tennis courts and the cricket pitch. And that piece of land from there up to the headland belonged to the people of Bude, not the council.
My understanding
Or has it changed?
No, my understanding was in the 1920s, the then council bought that land from the person that owned it on the understanding that they would.
But it belonged to the people of Bude and Stratton. It didn't belong to anybody else.
You know, it actually belonged to a significant landowner that wanted to build a hotel on it at the beginning of the 20th century. And there was an extended court case about it, that it was decreed to be common land, which was primarily for the grazing of donkeys, and the frustrated landowner therefore eventually got to build their hotel, which was the Granville Hotel in the centre of Bude, but they found themselves with a piece of land that they would have called waste. The then council of the time in the 1920s gathered together a significant amount of money, which in modern terms, I looked it up, was something like, would be something like £200,000, and they bought that land for it in order for it to be for the recreation of the people.
But did the people realise that then? Because it was always, in my opinion, with all the families I know that brought up in Bude Stratton, was that piece of land from pitch and putt to the headland belonged to the people of Bude, not the council.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was originally owned by a landowner, and there were very few landowners. You could count on the fingers of one hand the landowners that owned the land at that point in time between Moor and Stowe and going down to Crackington Haven and up to Holsworthy. And then at various points, land is sold off. It is either developed or it isn't. And at that point in time, in the 1920s, a brave, future-looking council made the commitment to buy that piece of land for the people of Bude. So,
there are better legal brains around here than me, but I think the terminology is that it's held in trust by the town council for the people of Bude-Stratton.
Yeah.
So legally, the town council is the trustees.
Trustees of that land?
Yeah.
Why?
But it's a legal requirement, as far as I'm aware. Like I say, I'm not a legal expert.
Okay, yes, sir. Oh, sorry, before I come to you, I do have.
Yeah, thank you. Just something for councillors to consider. The gentleman from the Croquet Club says that he will take an electrical connection from the existing pitch and putt building. He may not be able to do that. It depends what load there will be in the Croquet Club. So if they want heating, for example.
No, we don't.
Okay, that's
Definitely
fine.
don't want the heating.
Okay. That still doesn't mean that you will be able to take a supply from that building. So you want to check that. And the other thought was, I think that the inflatables that used to be on dams used to connect to that supply as well. So if, for example, there is spare capacity, give it to the Croquet Club, then you won't be able to put the.
Right. You wanted to say something?
I think the word you're looking for is the land. There is a covenant on the land that it can only be used for the purpose of recreation and sporting plans.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, I think we've reached a point where we can consider some proposals. I've got 3 things written down in front of me here. So, just let me read through the potential proposals. Proposal 1 would be to allow submission for planning or pre-planning for the building. Proposal 2 would be to allow works to grounds, lawn improvements to happen. And proposal 3 would be to agree, not to the extended lease. That is kind of where I am at the moment with this. I obviously need help from councillors in order to refine potential wording and for us to reach a potential vote one way or the other. Mike first.
I think I'd simplify it down into 2. We put in the pre-app to explore what we need to explore as load electricity can be connected, because the air bounce people, they actually have their own generators, so they weren't taking load from the building. But the point you raise about is of the capacity to draw from it is something. So we effectively do need a pre-app to find out the technical details of that. The second part is the lawn improvements. I think it's a no-brainer. There's a couple of bits of concrete that need digging out so they can smooth it off and get rid of a damp area down in the bottom corner. I can't imagine anybody's going to have any issues with that. Well, yeah. The third bit of the lease I was coming on to is we can't really decide on that until we get the details of the pre-app back. So pre-app to find out what we need to know. Oh, that'll wordsmith like Peter flowers it in the right terms because he's excellent at that. But pre-app and allow the groundworks to make improvements while we wait for that to happen would be my proposal, condensed it down into something more.
Before I ask for any seconders or precise wording, I need to get a shot.
Oh, no, it was just clarity about like pre-application advice rather than like planning application, because otherwise that's, Because you get advice within the full planning application, but we want to be explicit about pre-application advice from the planning authority about those ones. That's it's just wording, but it's kind of important wording.
Okay, I'm writing stuff down here now. I will attempt to do some of this unless anybody else has any suggestions. Okay, so this is what I have. Number 1, we propose that we submit a pre-application planning pre-application to explicitly explore electricity loading and feasibility of other technical issues connected with this change to the building. Peter.
I don't want to split hairs at this time of night because we're already getting into it deep. That's not what a pre-app does.
Okay, I don't know. This is why I need.
Yeah, no, sorry. So the details of the services, it's nothing to do with the plan.
Right.
So I think what we need is a pre-app to determine whether or not Cornwall Council will find it acceptable. And then we need some form of technical report from the Croquet Club as to how they would address those issues.
Okay. Kevin.
I think perhaps we're coming to the point where the Croquet Club needs to do some work and to talk to contractors and ask whether it is possible to create those kind of caravan-like connections which have got very light touch. And if a contractor comes forward with a specific proposal, then my understanding is that a specific proposal can then either go through as an application or as pre-app to get Cornwall Council's opinion on it. But we're asking Cornwall Council to almost give us building advice, aren't we? So really, I think the Croquet Club needs to get the electric and the plumbing advice as to what is possible, and then perhaps come back and ask for that to be either formally submitted as a planning application or as a more informal pre-app.
Yeah, just point out, I've noticed that the Croquet Club needs to submit a pre-application, not us. Yeah, but even though we're owners of the land, we don't submit a pre-application. So all the stuff that Kevin was saying about pre-work that the Croquet Club has to do, and then they have to submit a pre-application.
So our proposal would be to ask the Croquet Club to submit a pre-application planning.
Agree.
To allow VCC to make a submission for pre-planning application advice.
And to allow the minor groundwork they've requested.
Then I put to allow VCC to investigate the utilities connection and report back to BSTC. Resolved to allow the approval of the improvements to the lawns and drainage, and then resolved to extend the VCC lease or not. You haven't voted on that.
I think leave the lease alone.
Leave the lease
Leave the
alone.
lease alone for now. We can decide on that later. Sorry, through the chair.
I'm appreciative of people's contributions here. So to be
So
clear,
three
is that,
things.
are we voting on three things?
Three different things. First one, to allow VCC to make submission for pre-planning application advice.
I would like to propose that. Would somebody like to second it? Second it. All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining?
Quite interesting, they don't actually need permission to apply for it anyway.
So we're stating now.
Yeah.
We're
Next
stating.
one,
Next one.
to allow VCC to investigate
Hold
the
on, guys.
utilities
Just
connection.
listen. Can you start again?
To allow VCC to investigate the utilities connection and report back to BSTC at the next meeting, maybe, if you want.
I propose, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Could I amend that just to ask BCC?
Sorry, yes, ask.
Rather than
Yes,
allow.
yes. Thank you.
I would like to propose that. Second is from mine. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? All those abstaining?
And the last one,
The last one?
to approve the improvements to the lawns and drainage at the Creepy Pitch.
To agree.
To agree, sorry.
Yeah.
So agree that BCC carry out the
Yes.
improvement.
Yes, I agree. Is that a proposal from
That's
you?
a proposal for me to.
I would
agree
like,
that BCC.
who would like to second that proposal?
VCC carry out the
Sean?
improvements to the lawns.
Okay, so are we clear what we're voting on? Okay, all those in favour? And I believe that is unanimous. Okay, thank you so much.
Previously mentioned.
Can I ask a question? Because I thought when the cricket club had possession of that area for quite a while, probably about 5 years ago, then they actually ploughed it through and removed all the concrete bases. But I guess are some remaining? Could I ask?
Yes, there are, I haven't counted them because it depends. You have to wait till the lawns are very dry, then more of them are pit. So there's about 5 or 6 in 2 rows that actually comes right to the surface. There's another probably 10 to 15 which create shadows on the surface because they're only just under the surface. And when you get a dry August, the grass starts. How many of those are worth taking out? We won't know till we do the first couple. Whereas the 5 that are visible, you definitely need to take out. And some of them got lumps of cast iron sticking out, which threaten our mud.
Yeah, I know, they need to do it.
Right, thank you very much, councillors. So we now move on to the next item, which was 6 on your agenda, which is actually in reality bizarrely 8. So this is to receive a notice of motion, which is as follows, and quite rightly, or rather appropriately, this has been signed by 6 councillors. We, the undersigned, in accordance with Standing Order 2.7, request that the council reconsiders the decision adopted at full council, FC 09424-3, on the 6th of June 2024. That is, to revoke previous council decision regarding formal police operated on the wharf units. This is signed by councillors LeBroy, Browning, Osbury Watkins, Moores, Herbert Coulson and Burt. Now, Peter, I'm suspecting you might want to say, kick this off.
I'll do it as brief as we can because we're going on. Right, so the last time these guys attended, the last time this was on the agenda, there was a very strong sentiment expressed that the tenants in those units that have developed their businesses and invested in the premises would like to have the opportunity to renew their lease. My personal feeling at the time, having had some experience in leases in shops in and around Bude, was that normally if people have built a business in a particular location, they would have some sort of right or expectation that lease could be renewed, provided they've been adhering to their terms of their lease. But obviously the terms of their lease are that they currently run out, and the council previously decided that they would be let out to tender. 6 councillors signed the notice of motion in order to allow us to have another look at this to see if it would be a fairer option, maybe to have a different form of lease or a different way of looking at the lease. I think it's only fair for us to do that. We've had a very strong representation from members of the public here. They might want to speak again at this point. My own personal feeling is that we probably can't make a decision on this tonight because we're only looking at the notice of motion. But I would have a preference to get it resolved as soon as we possibly can, with something along the lines of perhaps we, providing tenants have been adhering to the terms of their lease, they would have the option to renew for a further 5 years. If they didn't renew their lease, then those individual units could be let out on principles of starter units. So in line with what their original intent was. But for tonight, it's just simply turning over the previous decision in order to allow that next conversation to take place.
Which I would assume the next conversation might take place in a committee first of all.
I think the town clerk had expressed an intent that could be done in that way.
Yeah.
So whilst I've got the floor, I'm happy to move this notice of motion.
Good. Thank you very much. Before I come to you, Tom, I did say to I think you that I'd give you a chance to speak.
Well, I mean, I could go through why we would like you to consider our application again, but if it's going to go to another, I wouldn't want to waste your time further by.
There's no guarantee that it's going to get there yet. So if you would like to say something, please feel free.
Thank you then. I just wanted to catch up on a few points that were made at a previous meeting, and also perhaps to the councillors that weren't here at the previous meeting to have a bit of background. We recognise that Bude-Stratton Town Council is within its rights as a landlord, but we're asking you to reconsider in your position as a council for local residents and local businesses. Our position is that our original tenancy was applied for, never tendered, with set market rent, and it's raised annually in accordance with the lease, and we do expect an annual increase every year. We were and remain grateful for the opportunity to be able to start our individual businesses and to achieve our dreams of being self-supporting artists and makers. 12 years on and some significant hurdles encountered in that time, we all rely on our profits from our enterprises to support ourselves and our families, and in some cases are the major breadwinners. Tendering by nature implies the bid amount is in consideration within the process, and for the current occupants, there's a very real risk of getting it wrong or being outbid, possibly by somebody not reliant on the profits to live, or by overestimating profits and underestimating the additional costs involved. I think it would be fair to say the Bude-Stratton Town Council in part enabled us to start our businesses, but the process of tender for future occupation feels like we're being effectively had over a barrel. Like many local artists, we've seen squeeze on profits since the pandemic, energy, financial cost of living crisis, and further expense will reduce our businesses' resilience to economic fluctuations in future. I believe this decision not to offer us a renewal, as was previously understood, but to tender was decided upon some time ago, but we only received notification in May. We have made business investments specific to the units, which we have not permitted to, and in those circumstances, and we've had to put lots of other plans on hold. If we had to tender, those plans would be further delayed. We're all extremely passionate about what we do and have made considerable sacrifices, which is in a large part of our success. It's not an overestimate to say the consequences of not being successful in a bid are, for us, enormous. And we've found this process, and we've found the tendering process with its uncertainty, risk and periods of being in limbo to be extremely stressful. In light of these circumstances, we respectfully request that we're given the opportunity to release these units as was originally agreed. Thank you. I don't know if you would like to.
Yes, I would like to add to that. As I said at the beginning, how the winters are getting busier and busier, which is a good thing for the businesses like that. That being said, with this potentially over our heads, it's we need to make purchases such as frames and materials, but with this over our heads and the uncertainty of that, the lease might not come back to us, or you might oppose and continue as you are, means that that could be a waste and an effect to us if we are unable to continue without that wharf unit. So I just want to make that aware that obviously with busier winter months that more purchases of frames and material will need to be made, but with the uncertainty, tenants are unsure what to do.
Thank you. Tom.
Yeah, I mind a technical point, and you have to forgive me for the opportunism of this. I can see from the wording of the agenda item, reconciling that with the note of motion, presented a certain challenge for staff, because the notice of motion is to revoke. The agenda item is to reconsider. But I'm not going to, I assure you, I don't want, the only point I want to make about that is it is the perfect reason why we should scrap Standing Order 2.7.
I see where you go with that. Thank you.
But I'm happy to second what Councillor Nicholas proposed.
Thank you then. Would any other councillors like to speak on this?
I just feel, from the point of view of people running businesses, that a renewal of the lease gives them security. Putting out tender, their lives have been put on hold at the moment. And I think that in this current economic climate is rather unfair of us. I think we ought to pursue, renew the lease and take it forward.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so, Philippa, sorry.
We're not actually at this point discussing whether we're going to renew the lease or not, are we? All we're discussing is whether we're going to revoke the Yes. About the resolution.
Yes.
Okay.
Opening the door for the new
So we
discussion.
have a new discussion at the CMD.
So, yeah, to allow councillors a chance to reconsider, most probably at the CMD committee. Yes? Yes. So we've had a motion, we've had it seconded. Are councillors clear on what they're voting for to support this motion? And therefore take it back to CMD to reconsider it. All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? We have it. Okay. Thank you
Can I
very much.
ask a question?
Yes, please.
Because as you said, it goes to committee. Are we allowed to come to that committee meeting?
That is a public meeting. Yes, you are.
That's up it.
Yes. Okay, right. We're now moving to item 9, to consider resolution FC 14924 and determine if any further resolution or statement is needed to fully address the emerging situation. I'll just pause for a moment. I know Tatiana wants to say something to begin with, and I also want to say something after Tatiana, and then we will open it up. That was wonderfully dramatic.
Taking trips on dressing myself for my 5-year-old. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night. Okay, so Tatiana.
Yes, thank you. So I would just, first of all, before you start reporting on this item, I would like to address the comments made by members of the public at the beginning of the meeting regarding the wording of the agenda item. So I would just like to say that the wording of that agenda item could have been and should have been clearer. So I take full responsibility for that. So I am responsible for setting the agenda and for the wording of the agenda items. And I just want to make it absolutely 100% clear that transparency and openness is always priority of council, wherever possible, and it is absolutely fundamental to my own professional conduct as town clerk. So all I can do is apologise for not being as clear as I would like to have been, and that won't occur in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. I have been involved in many meetings with BCP since our last extraordinary meeting. And there was one meeting at which most recently that I could not attend because I was at work. But at that meeting, I asked for this statement to be read to the partners. And it is as follows. BSTC continues to make all reasonable endeavours as lead partner to support all partners and staff at this difficult time. During this pause, BSTC officers and councillors have worked with all stakeholders and the lottery to address issues of governance and operation. As we reach the end of the agreed pause, I hope what needs to be done and by whom is becoming clearer. Therefore, BSTC Clark will now be the primary contact for BCP next steps, and other BSTC officers will return to their council duties. BSTC lead councillors and I will still offer support where we can. This will enable a clear single point of communication for vice chair, partners, senior staff, consultants, and the lottery. There's a lot more detail that could be said about that, but that was something that I wanted to make clear to partners, and I wanted to share here with you now, because one of my major concerns was the amount of work that was inherited by our officers and how that was compromising the actual work of BSTC. Now, we committed ourselves to do that, to make all reasonable endeavours, but there has to come a point where we move from that kind of intensive involvement and step back to allow our officers to do their jobs on our projects, and BCP has a chance to put his own house in order with the support of a single point, the clerk, who is a liaison between us and the partners, and the partners and the lottery. So that's the awful technocratic. I've been involved in meetings that I would call heavily technocratic, the worst type of politics, really. Very kind of HR language level of stuff, which is important because this is the language we use to be fair to everybody involved and attempt to reach reasonable, fair solutions. And there are a series of steps of which BCP still has a way to go, but is on that journey, but there's still a way to go. One of the things about that is this technocratic nature of it. So I've been able to engage with that because I have a certain level of experience as a trade union representative, and I have some minimal training in this, but the partners are attempting to consult professional HR people in order to help manage their staff fairly and appropriately, and to deal with potential outcomes from things that have happened. That's the worst type of politics for me. I'm reminded of the fact what the basis of this, and I'll say this now, and I know it's really got almost nothing to do with this point that we're going to, the fine points that we're going to discuss here discreetly. But the good bit of politics are things like the climate jury, which is really a bunch of people who sat down and were given a specific set of jobs, submitted to us a series of recommendations and asks. And one of the things that I would like to say to the sign of this is one of the more positive ways that we could move forward is to readdress ourselves again to these recommendations and to reconvene the working group some point this month or early next month, in which councillors could again address some of those recommendations and asks. I'm mindful of the load upon officers' times, so in some ways there might be potential for councillors to meet with our officers or to invite officers if they want to be there. But I do really want to affirm the good part of politics, where there has been a body that has assessed something, that has come to us and asked us to assess something and to give them some feedback. And it could have potentially good outcomes that we don't know about decades from now. I don't know. So I'll just say that before I turn back. I really recommend it and would support, and I would turn up, if any of these meetings took place outside of school hours, I would do my best to turn up no matter what. So that's there. But I do want to return to this. We discussed and we produced a resolution, which in some ways, if I look back at it, it probably should have been several resolutions, but we produced a resolution which we are following to, and the things that we have done have followed through with that. We committed ourselves as lead partner to step in and support and to continue to do that. But I'm aware that we are now at the beginning of September. There's been a lot of meetings that have been had, ins and outs, that most of it I can't share with people because of the really confidential nature of things as they stand at this point, sometimes. But I do want us to be able to talk about this in a discreet way in the public, and also to consider if we want to add any resolution to the resolutions that we've made already or not, as the case may be. Before I come to you, Kevin, I suspect that Peter might like to say something on this first. Is that okay, or would you prefer me to go to Kevin first and you think about it?
If you'd allow me to speak, and then maybe at the end I might have a wrap up. perhaps?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
So of course, through you, of course, the chair, the resolution that we came to was held entirely in closed session, which members of the public and Mr. Jennings, of course, alluded to earlier that he didn't find particularly comfortable with. My concern on this is that you've got a corporate body, View Climate Partnership, which is doing worthy work. I think their aims are good. The work and the outputs they've created so far, we as a council have invested in, so we've given them that vote of support, and I don't for a minute think we should change that. However, they have gone astray a little bit in their direction, I believe, and I don't think I'll be saying too much to say that I think was the sentiment of the meeting that I came away from. It was closed to the public, and that really, if we're going to continue to work and support View Climate Partnership to the level we have historically done, there probably need to be some fairly significant changes and assurances given to this council in how they operate. This council trying to resolve those problems, I think, was probably a mistake. And I felt, when I woke up the morning after that last meeting, I felt that perhaps we hadn't done justice to the conversations that we'd had. And I thought that actually perhaps we put ourselves a little bit too much in the firing line as trying to solve problems that are not really our business to try and solve. I personally have had frustrations with the ability, for me personally, to work with our council officers, because it appears that a lot of their time has been absorbed by this single issue. In fact, I don't really want the town clerk to comment, but if I was to ask you how much you and your key officers' time have been spent on this issue throughout August, I wouldn't mind betting it's probably 70+%. But anyway, you can answer that if you wish. I honestly feel that we need to create a scenario now where we are, I don't say withdrawing support, those are the wrong words, but we're withdrawing the amount of support time that we're giving to View Climate Partnership and helping them into a situation where they are solving those problems themselves. And how on earth we word that in any form of extra resolution, I have no idea, but that is where I'd be much more comfortable to be.
Kevin. It ain't about sand on somebody's core work, but it kind of is, isn't it? Because however you look at it, however you cut the cake on this, ultimately there will be some nasty things said to a lot of people in this town that people will either agree with or disagree with, fight, or go along. If somebody comes to you and says, it is likely, by the scientific predictions, your home is going to flood pretty much every time there's a really big tide, you're not going to like it. You're going to go, it's pretty horrible. And there's two ways to kind of deal with this. There's either, my home's going to flood on every big tide. How can I mitigate that? What can I do? Can I buy a flood door today? Can I maybe do something? Can the council or can some big organisation do something to mitigate that risk? Or do I just go, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe my house is going to flood. No, it's all to do with water coming down the river, or it's to do with the council not clearing the sand off crooklets like they used to do, or whatever. So there's a massive, big cultural row that we don't have, do we? I don't say, we should allow sand to build up on somebody's car. Yes, it's a good idea. We should do that because it's going to prevent it. Well, actually, I do say that. But as a corporate body, this organisation doesn't. The council doesn't, because there's no consensus around this table. But the View Climate Partnership is a way of tapping into money. It's a way of getting money into Bude for resilience for this community. And if we go, the community is so torn, the community is so, hasn't got its own ducks in a row over this. We really don't want this money. We don't want it. We don't want to be the beacon. We don't want to be the leader in addressing these difficult issues because they're too bloody difficult. Let some other buggers do it. and then we'll do it after.
Kevin.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. Councillor, right, language, but you get my drift. We could say as a community, this is just too hard a start. We're too divided as a community to address it. Or we could try and find ways that we can move forward. Now we've got the Bude Climate Partnership. The Bude Climate Partnership in many ways, although we're presenting it as a huge disaster, in many ways it's been a tremendous success. It's brought in lottery money, and that lottery money has in turn opened doors to other potential funding. There's a lot of money that could flow into this town to address serious issues about climate change if the Bude Climate Partnership is there. If the Bude Climate Partnership isn't there, there may be other routes for that funding. There may be other points. There might, possibly, could, maybe, perhaps. But we're not in the lead at the moment. We stumbled. We've perhaps fallen on our, whatever the appropriate councillor word for bottom is. But we can get up and we can carry on running. Or we can decide, no. Let's give up this lead in this area because it's just too blooming hard. So I think whatever resolution comes around this table, we need to try and find a way to get Bude Climate Partnership back up in a position where the lottery funding and other funding can still come into this town. Because if we don't do that, because we don't want sand on somebody's carpet, or we don't do that because we'd rather clear away the rocks at the top of Crooklist and let them build up. If that is what it all comes about, then we basically missed a massive opportunity as a community. And we've basically put ourselves right at the back of the queue for all future funding. And not just funding on climate. Because if you're the lottery, or if you're any big central government funding, and you look and you say, oh, Bude couldn't handle the climate change money, could they? The community were too divided, the council was too divided, they just couldn't, they can't hack it. So I believe that this is not just about the climate, it is about the perception of this town. And we really need to make this work. Whether you want to have the sand dune halfway across somebody's car park, you don't, is almost irrelevant. That's a discussion for another day. That's a detail that has got conflated into all of this somehow. We need to, I believe, do two things. We need to help the Bude Climate Partnership fix their organisation, and we need to lend support to the principle that is underpinning the Bude Climate Partnership, that this town is in the forefront of building resilience to climate change.
Thank you. Katie.
My concern, I do somewhat agree with Kevin. You know, obviously, but I hate the fact that it always comes down to money. And my concern is the reputation of this council and how that looks when we're involved with a group that potentially could have had such good ideas and, you know, could do so much good, but hasn't, in terms of, you know, how many times do you help and support a group or an individual before you get to a stage where you say, actually, we need to stop and think about our reputation as a council. If it was a different group, a different situation, if it wasn't so much money involved, if it wasn't to do with climate change, would our thoughts and opinions be different? But as a council, I think we really need to think about our reputation and how the people of Bude view us and our steps towards what we do future-wise with Bude Climate Partnership.
Thank you. Phil.
Well, there's one thing I want to address what Katie said just then, is that in fact this is the only time the private partnership has got into any situation that we as lead partner have actually had to take sort of interventionist action. So this is not an organisation which is repeatedly failing. This is a period of failure. So this isn't a repeated issue. I would say in terms of what Peter said, that we are not just a partner in the climate partnership, we are the lead partner. And with being the lead partner comes responsibilities. Now, we may not have been aware of that specifically when we signed up to the climate partnership, but we are the lead partner. And the other thing to recognise about the climate partnership is a number of the other partners are small voluntary organisations. So they don't have the expertise, the staff, or the time to be able to provide the kind of serious intervention that we're talking about here. And actually, I think, you know, if we as lead partner decide that we've had enough of this, that we're not going to expend any more time on this and the rest of it, then actually the partnership could completely fail and possibly would legally completely fail. So it's not just a question of us saying, well, shall we dibble in this or shall we not dibble in this? We are now crucial to either the survival of this partnership or its failure. And if we let it fail, we know, say goodbye to the rest of the lottery money, which hasn't been as yet spent, and we will probably jeopardise the CTAP scheme we have on it. So you might say, well, what if this was a small organisation that was ruining us reputation? What if this wasn't about £5 million? What if this wasn't about climate change and all the rest of it? Actually, it is about all those things, really, really important things. And that's why it's not an easy decision to say, oh, let's just step back from it then and see what happens. The final thing I want to say is that we've come under a lot of criticism from members of the public here and from members of the public on social media about having confidential meetings. There are reasons that you have confidential meetings. Everybody understands. If you've got something that's, say, commercially confidential, everybody seems happy to say, right, we can have a confidential meeting. But these confidential meetings there are other things at play here. There are people's lives, people's livelihoods, legal situations, and all the rest of it, which cannot, in all honesty, just be thrown onto the table in a public meeting, which will be then forever available both in people's memories and in the recorded history of this council and all over the internet. That cannot happen. And nobody should be thinking that at any point in their lives, their situation could just be thrown into a public meeting and displayed all over the internet for people's comments and all the rest of it. You have to be careful, you have to be sensitive about these things, and you have to follow legal requirements. This is not joking or just us being awkward or difficult or wanting to kind of just keep loads of secrets because it's easier to keep secrets than to talk to people about it. This is people's lives and livelihoods. And I mean, perhaps we haven't explained properly why these meetings have become confidential, but there are serious confidential issues at stake, which is why this has happened. My final point is I'm very pleased to hear about your thinking about the climate jury recommendations, and we're very much welcome being part of further discussions on that.
That would be a nice thing to do, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tom.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to start. There's so much to. I think one of the things we do need to sort of boil it down to is that very much this is about, as you said, the procedures, governance, all those sort of issues, and emotive language about climate change and money and things like that need to be, and this last point about people's lives and whatever, I think it needs to be taken out of the debate to a certain extent, because we need to examine what has gone on and how we address it. There was loads of points going on in my head all the time, and I've probably lost half of them. I am, oh yes, as regards the, I'm a bit kind of worried about, dare I say, the legality of some of the decisions. And this is not meant to be in any way disrespectful to anybody, I can assure you. But yes, decisions have to be made sometimes, have meetings behind closed doors. But for me, the problem is, I don't think we have had enough information to make decisions. And I hear you talking about various meetings you've been to. The only meeting I've been to about this is the extraordinary meeting. And you referred, and I wonder we'll come back to actually, but you referred to in the minutes to two most recent Bude-Stratton partnership partners meetings. Well, surely councils could be given the minutes of those meetings. Would that not be possible? So the rest of us, you give us a report, and that's fine, but that is your interpretation.
Yes, it
And
was. And I said at the time it was in time. I said at the time it was in time.
Yeah, you did. But I'm concerned. And the other thing, and again, please don't take this personal, but one of the issues, queries as regards legality is it was acknowledged in an email that there was discussions between yourself and the clerk, and that you had agreed something in relation to the private session. And this is a legal issue. If there's predetermination, that is a legal issue which could affect the legality of a decision. I'm not, it's not, by the way, it's not a code of conduct matter. So you're okay.
I am relieved.
It is, but it more to a certain extent, more probably maybe not for you, or I mean, you personally, but I'm concerned about the legality. Also, councillors have to be given sufficient information to reach a decision. And please, as I said, please don't take it as personal. And I am also minded of a point that Councillor Roy made. We had another issue some time ago, which is vicarious liability. And we're vicariously liable for decisions that we've made without knowing all the information. And I'm genuinely concerned about that. Can I just make one point? And again, please don't take it personal, but when we voted to exclude the public and press and public, we also, even though there wasn't a resolution, it was kind of agreed that the only thing that would appear in the minutes would be the resolutions. But in fact, comments by yourself have been included in those minutes. It says the mayor outlined the decisions made at the two recent Bude-Stratton partner meetings and explained the concrete. Either the minutes are, you're entitled to everything should be excluded other than the resolutions. But comments by yourself are included.
Well, that I would argue. I'm not going to argue anything. I'm going to further. This is technocratic. I asked the clerk to advise on this.
Yes, I don't have them in front of me at the moment, so difficult to comment, but from reflection, I think that was just to provide context. But having said that, also, there'll be time to challenge the minutes before they actually agree, now they've been agreed, but I would have looked into that if it had been brought up previously.
And the reason why I didn't mention it previously, I was going to, but I thought why I made a decision not to, because I'm not challenging the minutes. The only point I was going to make was that, or ask, or request, and call this selfish if you like, But I would like it recorded in the minutes of this meeting that Councillor O'Sullivan reminded councillors that he had raised concerns about the growing relationship between BCP and the SEC 3 years ago, and those concerns were dismissed.
I can't talk to things that were done 3 years ago. I actually wasn't there.
No, but they're just my comments, so it's not agreeing that this is true, it's just comments that I have made. And I think that's a request. It's obviously not for me to, I can't dictate what is appears in the minutes, but it's a request.
Was it your feeling they were dismissed, or, I mean, is that a feeling that you're?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you can't say that was, you know, it was my impression or my conclusion as well.
So maybe you should say, and you felt they were dismissed.
Okay.
And again, I am now arguing semantics. I don't want to go down this route.
No, that's fine.
I'll go through it.
I would like to have a look at those minutes before we decide.
Sorry?
I'd like to have a look at those original minutes
Okay.
and what was actually
Well, yeah,
recorded.
but I'm not asking you to make a decision on it. I'm asking you for my comments to be, my feelings or my comments to be recorded, not that this was kind of agreed by everybody or anything. It's just that I expressed something I expressed.
I just wanted to check that what you're saying now concurs with what was recorded at the time, rather than something completely different. That is it, me.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, make another point.
Yes.
So I don't want to get too involved in the discussion because that's for you to do. But just to respond to some of the comments about not all members being provided with the full information in order to make decisions. I'm not really sure that you've been put in a position where you've been required to make decisions. I think it's just that the situation has been evolving. As lead partner, the STC has been providing support during some slightly difficult times, as Councillor Pitt just mentioned. But we haven't presented members with any decisions that need lots of information in order for you to make a decision. As far as I'm aware, clearly there was a resolution at that last meeting, but when there is a substantial decision required, then clearly all of the information in order for you to consider that properly, or the context and so on, will be provided to us so that you will be fully informed.
Yeah, I just feel that it should have been, sorry, and actually agree with something that Councillor Diffie said in an email thread that the day of that, earlier on the day of that meeting, you said you said you were happy that this meeting is viewed as an update to councils on the situation, allowing for questions to be asked and discussion to be had. But you said you didn't think that it was appropriate for a decision to be made, and I would agree. I have to say I agree with that because it's very difficult to go into a meeting with no information whatsoever, be presented with purely verbal reports, etc., and to make a decision that has the potential to have consequences that it has.
In an attempt to move us on, can I say that your concerns are noted? I would also like to say we did 3.5. Sorry, I've gone quiet.
No,
I'm sorry. We, from my position, we did spend 3.25 hours discussing this, and we ranged over quite a number of things. But I do note what you're saying. I will look into whether it is possible to share those minutes with councils, and I can't say because I don't know whether it is possible to do so. But I will look into that.
Thank you.
John, and indeed.
Yeah, my points are kind of
fizzled out. One of them was just that it's a really fast evolving situation. So I felt that although it's unfortunate that things have to be dealt with in confidential session, we've been given all of the information that anyone at that time had. So I don't think the comments about us making decisions without information are really fair, because we all had the same updated information at that point. And that's the nature of that kind of situation evolving. I also want to say that I think it's highly appropriate to use emotive language when you're talking about something as significant as this project and as resonant as this in the future of our community. And actually to assume that people could strip the emotion out of something that is about community cohesion and resilience is actually kind of weird, because like we need to care about stuff, and the only way that we care about stuff is to feel really strongly about stuff, and clearly there's a lot of feeling one way or the other, as Kevin said, and I'm really keen that we kind of lean into how we rebuild confidence within the partnership itself, but then also rebuild confidence in the conversation that needs to be had in our community, because it's really painful and it's really inconvenient and it's really difficult, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. And yeah, I feel like someone said earlier about the forward thinking, I think it was you, Steve, said about the forward thinking council that, you know, held the land on the downs in perpetuity for the community. Well, I'd like to think that this is not a kind of complete bum in the mud moment, and actually it's just something that we can push through as a council, and that it won't completely tarnish our reputation, because I think we should all be thinking more about our community than the reputation of ourselves as kind of councillors and the council itself. We're embedded in this community, we're not separate from it, we are it, and it is us. So yeah, I think I just want to kind of remind everyone what we're talking about. We're not talking about like small measures and small things. It's significant, and it's also really personal. So I think, yeah, that's where I'll leave it.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah, I was asked by a member of the public, is BCC Blue Climate Partnership paid employees? Well, they're just on a gravy train. I said, well, I don't know how much they get paid. I can't answer that question. But I could answer the question if they asked how much salaries are of members of this authority, because they're public documents. They can look through the public documents and see. And I find that a bit uncomfortable, that as a lead partner, I don't know what some of these people are getting paid and their terms and conditions. And I'm sure that perhaps even the administrative staff didn't know, or maybe still don't know. The level of connectivity as a lead partner, I think the council as a whole should know what's going on. It's almost like an extension to the council. You know, I think that some members of the public are feeling a bit aggrieved that they don't know what is going on, and I don't know either.
Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to some points made by Councillor Deering, and I in a cordial manner, I hope. You know, I take your point about not, you know, all councillors were in the same position, but I'm not sure that all councillors being without the information gives it much more credibility than some councillors being.
That's not what I meant, Tom. But
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. That was right.
that's,
I've misunderstood you there.
yeah, I think we were all in a equally informed position, whether that was informed in your perspective or uninformed in other people's perspectives. I think we all had the information at the time. It was not ideal, but then neither is a really sensitive, confidential anything. It's not ideal for anyone, is it? And I think, like, to say that we didn't have enough information, I think we were given as much information as was possible at that point. That's what I was trying to get to. Like,
there wasn't really anything else to,
I don't remember
Share.
giving any information at all.
well, the 3.25 hour meeting.
Sorry,
was-
I said it in advance of the meeting.
No, but that was the point, wasn't it?
Okay,
Because it's-
okay, guys, we're going, okay, we're in danger of having the to and fro here, and I don't want us to go down that route. But before I come to Kevin, is there anything else you want to say, Tom?
Based on what you said just now, maybe I'd best shut up.
Okay, okay. Kevin.
Yeah, I'm conscious that I had a good long go at the beginning. I'm also conscious of time that Pete wants to put his opinion on the discussion. Don't get me wrong, I do not like the whole way in which things like town teams and things like the Bude Climate Partnership are created. I think it's a bad way to conduct business. I actually think the money should come to people who get voted in. I actually think that people around this table should say what they mean what they say, have the row, put their hands up and show leadership. That's what I actually think. But that's not what the government has decided upon. The government has decided upon these setups like town teams, like the Big Climate Partnership, where funding flows into an organisation that is partly business, partly community groups, has a little bit of involvement from the council, but is not an elected group, is not scrutinised, is not, as Councillor Moore says, public with everybody's salaries and so on. So we didn't create this. We used, the Bude Climate Partnership grew up as a community, as a series of community groups, a small scale organisation. It then was in a position to tap into a significant sum of money, and at that point, the town council, as I understand it, became more actively involved to be this lead partner, to have this legal position within the setup. So none of this is really about what we would prefer as a way of getting money into this town. It is just the way that's been created that we have used to get money into this town for climate resilience. Now, yeah, it does come back to money, and it also comes back to leadership, because if this fails, as I said at the beginning, I make no bones about reiterating it, the reputational damage isn't that the Bude Climate Partnership is in trouble, we've had to bail it out. Some people in the town don't like the things that the Bude Climate Partnership stand for. That's not the reputational damage. The reputational damage is that Bude has to hand back 2/3 of a lottery grant, that Bude cannot continue possibly to have the CTAP money because we've shown ourselves to be poor at being able to get our community cohesion together. That's the reputational damage. This body, whether we're popular or unpopular, that will be decided in May. Whether individuals want to stand on an anti-BCP ticket and chuck it all in the bin, that will be decided in May. That's a different issue. But the reputational damage with funding bodies and with the lottery and with Cornwall Council and with central government, that will be massive if the climate partnership collapses. And we end up going, well, our community can't back this.
Thank you, Kevin. Members of the public, I will come to you, but I want to give councillors a chance to have a little chat about this. I will come to you. Philippa?
Yeah, I mean, again, I want to absolutely reiterate what Kevin said just then. This structure, the Bude Climate Partnership type structure, the town team type structure, is a structure that has been imposed on communities by the last Conservative government, because that is how they wanted to push money into communities. So that's the first thing. And part of the rationale around those types of organisations is they're not transparent like councils. They don't make decisions like councils. They are kind of private, partially private companies and all the rest of it, because private companies are deemed to be amazingly flexible and fleet of foot and all the rest of it. So that's the way they are. So that's why the money goes that way. I absolutely object to Councillor Moore's using terms like gravy train, even if he's just saying that in the sense of, I'm just repeating what other people might be saying. The Bude Climate Partnership.
That's freedom of speech.
The Bude Climate Partnership applied for a lottery grant and they got it, and the terms of that lottery grant, they are delivering. There's no question that there's people doing, doing anything other than that. And you kind of throwing those terms out, it implies that there's something else going on in that organisation, and there is nothing else going on. Now, we might like to think that the Bude Climate Partnership, the way it's, the way the money could be used is for something different. We might like to think it would be putting solar panels on houses or whatever else. It was never going to do that because that grant never covered any of that. The grant is specific in how it can be used, and that is specifically what the Bude Climate Partnership is doing. And any suggestion other than that, I think it's absolutely wrong. It's just wrong.
Before we move on,
I wouldn't suggest it, Mr. Chairman. I was just repeating what someone said to me.
Well, repeating what other people say is implying to some extent that you agree with it.
Very interested. You've got an opinion, so saying.
Peter, I do understand, but I would add this before I continue. I will say that 8 people are employed as staff by BCP. They are paid a wage for the work that they do. And the work that they do is remarkably similar to the staff in our own organisation. And we would never criticise them for taking a wage for doing the things that we do. That's what I will say there. And I would like us to keep in mind the fact that they made some of those people that are employed by BCP who do a working job may be watching this. Okay, just keep that in mind. Okay.
I'm not disputing ever the work that they are there to do, or the things that need to be done to protect this town from climate change. I think it is important, and it needs to be a constant conversation. I think the public need to be involved in those conversations constantly. I think it should be as transparent as we can possibly make it at all times, as with everything that this committee does. I believe should be as transparent as possible at all times. My sadness comes in that the situation that has arose has been massively detrimental to everything else that this council has done, because everything else has stopped. So this has become the most important thing. And I'm not saying that it's not important, because it is important. But the sadness is that everything else has taken a back seat because of that. So going forward, that, in my mind, that cannot continue to happen. And whatever route this council takes as lead partner needs to always make sure that nothing else drops off, and that nothing else is, our staff have given all of their time to this one thing. And that's sad. That's sad that all the other things and projects and hard work that this council has done has been put on hold for this one thing. That, in my mind, isn't okay. And so moving forward, whatever happens, that cannot continue to happen.
I'd also like to clarify that the timing of this crisis, you can never time crises, can I? The crisis occurred at a particular time when our capacity was reduced anyway. And so therefore our capacity to do things during the month of August was compromised already. And then this thing was added on to it. So we weren't working at our top level to begin with. But yeah, I take your point. Vicky,
if Bude Climate Partnership was doing what it was meant to be doing, we wouldn't be having all these discussions. Obviously, you know.
Please do not. Thank you. It's a bit of a general comment, Vicky.
It might be a bit of a general one, but that's the way the public sees it.
Well, that also is a general.
With
that
the
also-
partner.
Hold on. That is a general comment, and I would remind you that there are people possibly watching this who work for the BCP, and it's a fair comment because it's a free speech, but it's a general comment. So you know, this is what the public think. Some of the public are not aware at all the BCP exists. Some are closely following. Some are invested in whether it survives or fails. If they were meant to be doing what they're doing, it's a general comment. They have been, from an objective point of view, from my point of view, success in what they have done. They have achieved various objectives in where they are at this point in time in the 5-year program that they're in. That is true. There are specific things that we could talk about, but we can't really talk about, which have resulted in this crisis. But let's not tarnish the whole organisation or the whole programme on the intention of it, with they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's my view. Sean, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on that and say that from my perspective, and in my opinion, what you just said wasn't just incredibly generalised, but also incredibly offensive and productive to all of the hard work that the staff are carrying out, and also all of the volunteers that have given their time, all of the jury members that were involved in those 1,000 human hours of activity. Like that is your opinion, and you are allowed your opinion, and I strongly disagree with it. And I think this, unfortunately, is something that has turned into a mountain. But the focus of our attention should be how to actually get back on track with what BCP does, rather than what it doesn't. So yeah.
Okay, before I go to the public, I'm aware, I think, Becky, I don't think you've said anything. I think you might be the one person that hasn't. You wish to make?
It's good listening.
In which case, Mr. Bennett, been very patient. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I'd say something.
The councillor just now mentioned about the sand on somebody's car park. That's happened all the time in the 76 years I've been living here. Years ago, they would get a local planter firm down there with a wheel digger. All the farmers would turn up with their trailers and all the contractors with their lorries and load all the sand up, put it on the fields, put it in the cattle sheds and clear it for nothing, no expense to the council at all. So why is there all this fuss now that you're just going to let the car park cover over with sand? It's ridiculous. It's gone too far. Every winter they used to clear the sand for no cost to the council. Just simply, the farmers would come down with their trailers, hundreds of them. I've been down there with a wheel digger in my time, loading tons and tons off that car park. And they even used to have lorries go drive down the river and back into the sand dunes, and you would shovel 10 ton onto the trailer, onto the lorries by hand. I've done that.
Although
there's still sand there.
Although it doesn't really connect with the specifics of what we're talking about now, I am minded to think that's a great example of lots of people coming together to do big things, and I suspect that when we finally stop talking about the technicalities of the ins and outs of it, ultimately it will require lots of people coming together to do.
But it's nothing to do with climate change.
Well, that's
absolutely nothing to do with climate change.
That's a point of view.
Northcote would be flooded.
Yeah.
Woodmouth Bay would be flooded, but now it's just viewed because of the breakwater and because of Cricklett's Car Park Beach.
Okay, thank you. We made do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Jennings, you've been very patient too, and I know you put your hand up. You did. Yeah. Well,
You're on about this business. people don't know what's going on. That's what the thing is. They want people to support it. I hope this climate change just disappears because I am sick and tired of all the secrecy. I've lived here all my life and I can't even find out what's going on. You lot won't even discuss it. There's people on that climate change that have been in Bude 5 minutes and they know what's going on. You live your all life. If you can't be open with everything, then go. Simple as that.
Okay.
Let's have some openness and honesty and truth.
The 3 million they got, they've been feeding the people coming down here and keeping them in hotels to make their discussions.
Gentlemen, I really don't want to go down that road.
No, but that's the truth.
Yeah. Peter here has been waiting patiently, and I know he wants to sum up.
Yeah.
I let you speak, sir, and then I will go.
Yeah, sure. Presumably, the climate change partnership will have an AGM. Because if they have an AGM, most AGMs declare what they spent their money on. So that if you were concerned about what the money was spent on and you went to the AGM, they would disclose who paid what and what else they'd done with the money. Now, it may not be set up like that. I don't know, because the partnership is a little unusual creature that's been created for, shall we say, good reasons. But normally, if they were to have an AGM, part of an AGM is to tell the people who belong to that what the monies have been paid on. And if it was an AGM, members of the public would be able to go, and then you would all know.
I can't speak to that. Only thing I can say.
No, it's just an observation.
Yeah, I can say to you is they're about to adopt some governance policies, which may or may not speak to that, but I don't know at this point in time. Peter, before I go to Peter, I'm mindful that it is now 4 minutes to 9, so I would like to propose an extension. Excuse me, gentlemen. I'm talking.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but you let other people speak, and I did have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Before I continue, I've got to do a piece of procedure. So I will come back to you, and then I will go to Peter, okay? We're now 3 minutes to 9. I propose that we extend this meeting till, what do you think is a reasonable extension?
We're saying 15 minutes and see how it goes.
Okay, well, 15 minutes past 9 o'clock, so we would extend it to 9:15, but it stretch out to the crack of could somebody please second that proposal? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, it's a piece of procedure that allowed us to continue beyond 9. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to point out that when one of the councillors here, who I know very well, happened to say that she thought that, and a generalisation that she commented on, that BCP were brought themselves.
Can I just interrupt you there? I might have been a bit officious there with you. I'm aware in the past that public have clapped on things going backwards and forwards. If I look back in it now, please carry on.
Well, anyway, I'd like to say that from my point of view, and obviously not certain councillors, I thought the BCP had brought themselves into disrepute because a member of the BCP brought forward a 60-page document. They might not have actually signed it off. I can't seem to find out who actually did provide this document, but this document had an effect that it tried to gag a democratically elected councillor, one of your own council. Now, if that is not bringing the reputation of this council down, it's certainly bringing the reputation of BCP. They shouldn't be involved in that. They should be involved in getting on with their remit, which is looking at ways of limiting climate change within the community, not trying to write recommendations or attacking a particular councillor because they don't agree with the things he says.
I'm sure you understand that I can't comment to that particular opinion at this point. Thank you. Peter.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I just coming at the last minute. Look, just an observation for you all, please, just to hear. I don't have a clue how you lot can claim to be a lead partner. I have no idea what authority you have over this undemocratically accountable organisation. As far as I'm concerned, you've got one vote. That's my awareness. You are a voice in the wilderness. You have no power at all. In my opinion, they have run roughshod over this council. It is an absolute disgrace. I have no idea what their grant specifically gets them to do. It is really upsetting that they are not democratically accountable, that they are making massive recommendations that, you know, you just said that you want to start progressing. Well, I'm one of the public who thinks that some of their projects are an absolute shambles, that are not going to have any effect on saving Bude from climate effects whatsoever. Yes.
I'm just interrupting to specify the things that we will be considering from Bude, Bude climate jury.
Yes.
So that
Okay.
I'm just thinking of a group of people who had a specific job to do. They sat down, they came to a series of decisions, and as part of the process, we said we would consider it. And that's quite, although there's a background of BCP to that, in reality is that's something to ask us. That's all.
And really just two final things. Kevin has been really vocal on the concerns about the damage to this council. Okay. Now, again, my view as a member of the public, really, you're not as damaged, nowhere near as damaged as that organisation. The big problem that you've got, as far as I can see, is the liaison. I have no idea what the liaison can tell you people or what you've been told. But for example, for that attack on Councillor LeBroy to have gone ahead, if you knew about that, it should have been stopped. If you didn't know about it, then why on earth not?
Okay, right. So, thank you for that. We've listened to your point of view.
Yeah.
Please.
I've made a whole load of notes. Good night. And the trouble is that probably some of them might be more important than others. I can't remember what all
It's ranged. It's ranged a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah. I'll try and keep them succinct, but they might be not in order of preference. So one of the points I wanted to make was Bude climate jury. And this was very fairly selected. And I was on the steering group that went through the selection process. Right, but the only criticism that I would have is that I think it's been sold to us as Bude, as in Bude Town Climate Jury, whereas the climate jury was actually selected from the wider community area network, which goes up to Morwenstow down as far as Crackington Haven. I think that sort of direction, then inland quite a bit. So all the jury weren't necessarily.
Okay.
Don't move.
But I don't mean that to debunk anything at all. I just mean to make it sure people do understand that. The point that Vicky made, your blunt point, I won't repeat what your point was, but to put it more eloquently, Bude Climate Partnership really need to be measured against their articles of association, which set out what they intend to do and what their relationship with the public and the members of our community is to be. And I think that's a really important thing, because my opinion is there may be some discrepancy there, but it needs to be done in a formalised manner. And that if there is a process to be done, that needs to be done. Tom was talking a little bit about vicarious liability and what we know and what we don't know. And I just want to remind everyone around the table, and I know, Steve, that you've probably put huge amounts of time and care into this. And I don't want to dumb that down in any way whatsoever. But you are but one councillor.
Yeah.
You don't have any more rights than any other one of us that sit around this table. So every one of us is a lead partner, and we have the right to know everything, to be involved in the decision-making process, and to be educated sufficiently in order to make the decisions that we make. So we should know everything that we know. And I know that there was a partnership meeting yesterday. And I'd be quite interested in some of the outcomes that you didn't speak about. And
I did not attend this meeting.
oh, okay. Well, so
work.
did any from the council attend the meeting?
Since on Tuesday.
Right. So through the chair, if I may, as part of many other questions, one of the, I don't think I'm going to speak too far at a time. I need to be careful what I say here. Of course, you'll understand this. But one of the coat pegs that we were going to hang our coat on was the fact that we had this new chairman coming in. But nothing's been said about that.
Yeah.
So could I, is it okay to ask for a quick
Well, I'm
response?
going to defer to the clerk here, whether I can say anything about that one. I would have thought we could.
I think so, and I think it's entirely appropriate, actually. Yes.
Well, I don't know what the answer is.
Well, I'm assuming you're referring to the appointment or non-appointment of the chair. As long as you don't, I'm sure you're not going to dwell on any particular fine details of it.
Well, I don't know any of the details. That's the problem.
So we're going round and round. You want to be able to say that the chair that we hoped to appoint has not been appointed. Is that what you want to say?
Well, no, I don't want to say anything. What I want to know is where are we? Because we have like a stop-off point coming in the very near future.
Oh, that, okay. Where are we? So where are we? Okay, guys. I know you want to talk to each other, so can you be more specific? What do you mean, Peter? Explain to me.
Have we got a new chairman appointed?
Who is it?
No.
Okay.
I just make a brief statement on that really. Yes, we were very hopeful that the individual who'd been interviewed would work out very well and seemed very positive. However, ultimately that didn't happen. So it just didn't work out, and I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of correspondence and discussions and things, but that was the outcome. And so the recruitment panel that was responsible for that process, we made that decision, and that's where we are, and that individual has been informed. And as have members of BCP, so the staff are aware of that as well.
Can I carry on? Thanks. So on the, fine, I take what you're saying. I didn't know. I was just curious to know where we were going to be at our next drop-off point. There's quite a few comments being made about Bude-Stratton Town Council being a lead partner. And again, I just want to remind ourselves around this table that we as councillors never actually chose to do that. It was a decision made by the previous town clerk. And it was made because the lottery required us to be lead partner in order for the Climate Partnership to be given the money. There's probably a lot more nuance to it than that, but that was the reason that it happened. And it seems that the responsibilities of being lead partner perhaps are somewhat more onerous than just being a money handler to be climate partnership. Kevin said one of the reasons that we've got all this trouble is because the public can't hack the decisions or some of the stuff that's coming forward. I think, am I paraphrasing you about right in that? And I think if I was to offer an answer to that, it's because I believe the public would say, if you're absolutely serious about protecting Bude from sea level rise, we ought to be pointing our interest straight at the breakwater, straight at the rock armour around Summerleys, straight at the defences around Cliffcliffs. Now, the reason Bude Climate Partnership are not doing that is not because they're not interested, because I bet they are. Right? It's because the funding window that they've got doesn't allow them to do so. So you can't really blame them for it. But I sense that's probably where a large part of the frustration comes from. Because community people probably already know the answers, but People Partnership can't necessarily give them the answers that would be the obvious solutions. Maybe nobody can. I honestly think that our role as lead partner, as a money handler, was acceptable, with a bit more responsibility, not a problem. Right, but I think it's time now, and again, I don't know the answer to this, but the lottery have an awful lot of power in terms of governance over the grants that they give to people. Surely it's time to call the lottery in and tell them what the problems are and let them resolve them. And I think the reason why we go around in circles around this table is we're trying to resolve problems that we're not used to dealing with. You know, we're not used to dealing with organisations like this. Yeah, I know Philippa and Kevin have both said about arm's length organisations. It's not something that we're comfortable with dealing with. And being democratically elected, you know, we know where our parameters are. We can have those discussions. But actually, when it comes to an organisation that has most of its meetings effectively as close to the public and private meetings, it does make it very difficult for us as councillors to be able to fairly represent and understand and basically handle those relationships. So I totally understand that. So I would say it's probably time for us to support the Climate Partnership absolutely strongly, understanding they have limitations on what they can do, but I totally support them. Right, but the help has got to come. I don't think we can resolve their problems. It has to come from either themselves or from the lottery. So one of the proposals that I want to lay on the table now is that we make absolutely sure the lottery is aware of the problems that we've got, or the work that we've put into this, and tell the lottery that we wish to actually allocate specific time so that all of our officer time stops being hoovered up by this problem. And I was going to propose that we say that we write to the lottery, make sure they're aware of the issues, and that from the immediate future we offer support of one officer for 1.5 day per week to be nominated, which would allow our council officers to get on with their workload of the council.
Okay, that's a proposal. Peter.
Yeah, could I just want to qualify what I said earlier, backpedaling a little bit. I'm in no way meant any detriment to any of the staff who are BCCP, right? Council Treasurer seemed to think one was being nasty, but I wasn't. I mean, I know they do good work. I understand that. And they're just some questions that perhaps some people would like to be answered. Now, Councillor Boyes made a proposal. I did ask the Deputy Town Clerk when main Town Clerk was away, if it was possible to claim back any time from the lottery funding for officer time that this authority is allocated, bearing in mind that there are paid employees of BCCP. And I don't know the answer to that question, whether it's been mentioned or not, but I'm quite happy to second that proposal, but I do think out of that 2 point whatever million pounds it is, some of it should come back to recompense the authority for the time that's been spent on our officers' time. So if you're prepared to accept an amendment to that proposal to incorporate that, I'm quite happy to second it.
I mean, to accept.
It's sort of a separate thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I'd support both of them, but putting the two together sort of conflates the issue, doesn't it?
Shall we?
We're going to end up with 3 resolutions, really, aren't we?
Yeah.
One of which is made the lottery aware.
Yeah. I'd much rather not have a big resolution like we did before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we can.
No parables.
So, obviously, you proposed to add that to councill's Roy's Peter's version. He has suggested that he's unwilling to accept that and suggests that it comes as a separate proposal. Okay.
Could I also, if you don't mind, through the last I mean, I don't know an awful lot about the setup of the lottery and the obligations of the lead partner, which the town council is, or this authority is, but I thought that incidents that have occurred, we've got to be careful what I say, have to be reported in any case. The lottery has to have updates of how, what is occurring anyway. So it's probably already happened or it's going to. I don't know, but I'm asking the clerk to say whether that's the case or not.
Okay.
So that
Well, sorry, can I propose we extend the meeting another 15 minutes?
Well, I'd like to do half an hour and then you have to keep doing it.
Okay, so I'll go for 15 minutes. I propose that we go for 15 minutes. Do I have a seconder? Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. Before the clerk answers, I know the clerk has been communicating with the lottery. And I know the deputy clerk has been communicating with the lottery. So I will leave to the clerk entirely what she thinks is appropriate to reveal about those communications. But I will say on her behalf, there have been significant communications with the lottery, but I know that doesn't answer your question.
But it does.
Tatiana.
Because councillor Boyd's proposal might not be necessary because it's already happened. That's what I was trying to get.
And we didn't know.
Well, I had an inkling, you see. Because I read it.
Okay.
I'm not being detrimental, I've looked into stuff. It's difficult, it's a minefield, but that's what I understand.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Let's give Tatiana a chance to decide whether she wants to give a considered reply or if she does not want to extend beyond what I said.
Well, I can say that yes, there has been some communication with the lottery, and certainly the deputy town clerk has been in correspondence and communication with them over the last few weeks. Obviously, he's been off on annual leave for the last fortnight, and I've now sort of taken over that role, and will continue to do that as Debbie. Yeah, so the thing is that some of these conversations are happening quite rapidly, and it's a question of working out, how much information to share and when, and what's appropriate and so on. So I'm still trying to sort of process what's sort of made and work out the best way forward, which is most helpful to everyone. Certainly some of the reference to a half day a week that was made just now, I'm not sure whether that's the right term, and certainly length of time, and certainly that would be something for officers to determine, whether it should be more or less. So there are lots of unknowns in that, so I don't feel very comfortable agreeing to that proposal as it stands. I don't know if Councillor Burgess put her on the spot. Anything else as having been involved in some of the specific conversations recently, but
I mean, my view is that half a day a week at the moment is not sufficient and would potentially halt and extract some of the good work that's actually going on at the moment. I mean, I think we could probably say that we should come back to this, in a month's time or something like that, so that we could kind of review it again. But I think putting a time limit, I mean, my feeling is that Steve's already explained that Tatiana is now going to be the sole point of contact, that it's not going to be involving any other members of staff. And that in itself is a reduction in the sort of intensity of work from over the summer. So I think that we should support that arrangement that the town clerk and their partners have agreed to.
Okay. So, Councillor Broad, Peter, you made a motion, a proposal, sorry. Is anybody going to second Peter's proposal to this point?
Yeah, I'll second it, just to put it to the vote. Well, just moving on.
So I just wonder if we can come to some middle ground.
Okay, so we have a proposal which is seconded potentially.
Right, okay, we could have an amendment, but through you, Chair, if I may address the clerk and say the intent was to try to take the pressure off of our own staff and to give the lottery focus that they need to step in and help out. rather than us trying to resolve the situation. And my feeling was that if we just said, okay, Tuesdays, for example, is the day where we can step in and help and give you time, that it might focus people's minds on giving you correspondence that you could deal with in one block, and that you wouldn't end up getting necessarily distracted by phone calls and communications coming in all throughout the week, and thus losing time to spend on our own other activities.
Yeah, thank you. So I like the idea and it sounds great. However, I would just say that at the moment that's not practical, because things need to be progressed, and if I leave, things cannot be left from one week to the next. And there needs to be, ongoing contact on, several times a week. And so on that's one point I'd like to make. And then the other point that you raised in terms earlier, just now, regarding contact with the lottery, I wouldn't want members to feel that the lottery were not being kept informed, because they are. So I think that's an important point to make. Having said that, it's a sensitive route of communication, because clearly we need the lottery to have confidence in the project and have, that the funds are being well held and that the process is going ahead. And while there might be some temporary difficulties that we are helping to resolve, we wouldn't want that to jeopardise the whole process. So it's a question of finding that fine line. I'm doing my best with my diplomatic skills to tread that line and to report to the lottery, to report to you, and to try to move things forward so we have a good outcome all round. So that is my intention, and I feel fairly confident that I'm actually getting there with the support of the partners.
Do you want to respond to Peter? Would you want him on over? Well,
Sorry, no. How could we help you to begin to narrow down the amount of time that is being spent by our officers?
One officer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you need to trust my judgment that I will, as an experienced flower, focus my energies and time on what I consider to be priorities, and that is what I am doing. And I consider this matter to be quite a large priority at the moment. Obviously, I'm keeping on top of my other duties, the most important ones, and making sure that staff are supported, responding to open emails. I've responded certainly to you, Councillor Broy, a couple of times in the last couple of days. So just to make sure that urgent issues are being addressed, and I feel confident in being able to juggle all of those things. So I shouldn't worry unduly about my sort of workload and prioritisation, but I do appreciate the concern.
Well, if I may, if the seconder is prepared to withdraw, I'll just withdraw the proposal.
Okay.
In light of what the town clerk has said.
Yeah.
Right. However, I want to support what Councillor Purchase said, is that we do at some point need to put an absolute cap on time spent supporting this organisation. That time may not be now.
Sorry, I've got my Kevin wants to. I was going to say,
sorry, Kevin.
It follows on from my comment about the addition to the proposal. If Kevin doesn't mind, well, I'll make the proposal then that the town council invoices BCCP because it must have an administration budget, which we have to obviously pass on to for the time spent by our town clerk on the matter.
Jackie.
There you go. That's the proposal on the table.
Sorry, Kevin, I do apologise. I thought Jackie wants to say something.
It's fine.
It's just a really quick.
I'll come to you right after.
Save the best till last, we do get an amount from BCP already. I don't know how much that is. I'm sure it has a covered
recent months and hours, but we do get an allowance.
Yes, we do.
And I can't remember how much it is, or whether everybody knows, but I just want to make it clear, we do already get some money from BCP, not recently, but on balance, we haven't had that much to do for the first year, other than, yeah.
That amount on housing finance. Kevin.
Right, when we had our private meeting, there was some discussion of lottery special measures, like the lottery had a kind of special squad that they send in, like the Department of Health does to hospitals and the Department of Education does to schools. I have done some investigation into this, and there is no such thing. The lottery does not have a hit squad that will go in and take over and put projects into special measures and turn them around. That's just not a thing. It is basically down to us. If there are special measures that are put into the BCP arrangement, then it is us as lead partner that are providing special measures as opposed to the lottery. There isn't going to be an external white knight that just takes this burden off our shoulders, I'm afraid. So, as difficult as it is, I believe we should trust the town clerk's judgment to provide support for BCP until such a time as they're able to support themselves. Because the only other option, as I understand it, and I have done a bit of research, is that we could say to the lottery, we will not be able to deliver this. This is not doable. Pull the plug, cut the losses, and negotiate. Yeah, make those people that are doing good work of the community, in the community, not busting from elsewhere, but actually people who live here doing decent salary jobs here and providing work and providing good outcomes in the community. We get the standing drop off. Other things are being done apart from that. We could close the whole thing down and potentially even have to give some of the money back, but certainly not get the next tranches of money through it. But if we don't take that thermonuclear option, then the only other option is to work through to a point, which I don't think we can put an arbitrary number on, where BCP is able to take full control of the situation again.
Okay, we did have a proposal, which is we invoice BCP for officer time. If anybody wants to second it. Vicky has seconded it. Okay, right. Let's have a vote. All those in favour? All right. And all those against? All those abstaining? Okay. Yep.
John. I think I've got something further to say. I'll make it quick.
Before you do, can I make a proposal? Shall we extend this meeting for 15 minutes? And I suspect this will be the last time that I say this. No, I'm not going to go beyond quarter to.
Okay. So the point stems back to Vicky's blunt point, which I refined into Bude Climate Partnership need to be measured against their articles of association. Well, who's doing that?
Say that again.
Vicky's blunt point, which you didn't like, so I won't repeat it. Yeah. That I refined into Bude Climate Partnership performance needs to be measured against their own articles of association. Mm-hmm. Who's doing that?
Can I say, in terms of the projects, there is a clear set of evaluation activity going on. Each of the projects is being evaluated in the way that they set up in the first place by the lottery, and those evaluations are coming through. Now, I don't know how widespread they are or how widespread they can be, but certainly in terms of the projects, that's happening. In terms of the governance, which I think is the problem we've got at
Yes.
the moment, there's a concentrated piece of work that the partners have been doing to try to realign the governance and try to, make it more usable. One of those pieces of the puzzle, as we know, was to get a new chair in. That hasn't happened, so the partners haven't as yet made any decisions about how they want to move forward with that. But the partners are keenly aware that in terms of the governance, there's some work that needs to be done, and they are doing it.
So, sorry, my point is that the role of chair is currently unoccupied. So Beauty Climate Partnership effectively don't really have a conscience, if that's the right word. Okay, fair enough.
Sharon, yes, time, well spotted. I propose that we extend the meeting 15 minutes. Somebody second that, please. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. We've discussed this, we had a proposal, we voted on it. I'm now going to propose that we move on to the next item on the agenda now. We are on number 10, to adopt a health and safety policy.
That was it.
Oh, no, hang on.
Be careful,
Okay,
Peter,
I got this.
go for it. You're taking the pain.
Well, I'm really sorry for this, but I actually read 159 pages of this afternoon.
Right.
Right, we can't do it. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's been picked up by the looks of it by a company that specialises in health and safety. It even has rules on how we deal with our indoor skate park. Do you know that? Nobody else has followed that, I guess, so nobody else going to read it.
Why do you read these books? Why do you read them?
Right, 159 pages. Right, but if you actually read those 159 pages, there is no way on Hell's Teeth that we could meet the obligations that we are setting ourselves out to do. I'm really sorry. There is not a chance I could vote for this.
I think we definitely need to defer this, because I have to say to you, I have not read it. I went to print the document out and I thought, how many pages? I can't think I printed that out. So I propose we defer this item. Can I have a seconder? Yeah, all those in favour? Very much. Right, okay. Number 11, we have to do this. To approve finance reports. 11A, schedule of payments made between the 2nd of August 2024 to the 5th of September 2024 that was shared with us. Yes.
It's just a question, and I don't know where I stand on this. Obviously, I've made everyone aware that that's aware that my wife works for the council, and obviously there is something on here about wages. And should I just abstain from any voting on anything? I just wanted to clarify that that's what I was going to do, and that is what I should do.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Thanks for raising that. Schedule of payments. First of all, do you have any comments on them? Okay, I need a proposal.
Proposal noted.
Proposed. Seconder. All those in favour? Thank you. And of course, we have some who's abstaining, we're not voting. 11B, scheduled payments to be made on 6th September 2024. Hope you've all seen them. Comments? Proposer? Seconder? All those in favour? Fantastic, thank you very much. To receive any updates from lead council, anybody want to say anything?
I'll save you for the next meeting.
Brilliant, fantastic, thank you very much. Number 13, to seek volunteers for the role of lead council for transport and connectivity. Tatiana, can you say something about this?
Yes, I can. So I've been approached a couple of times by Connect View who are concerned because they no longer have a direct link with council in terms of a lead council that reports both ways since full councillor Goods left. So that they really would like to retain that relationship. So they're very keen for a member to volunteer themselves really for this role, if it's possible.
Anybody interested? take it that nobody is. We will revisit this then, perhaps, at next meeting. Number 14, to receive any correspondence from the clerk. Okay, we don't have anything beyond what you can share already.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry?
Sorry, do.
Ah, we do.
The friends of.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you. Yeah, so it's been, there's a letter from the friends of, people that's been circulated, to everyone. Obviously, it's not an agenda item, so we're not in a position to make any decisions, but if you would like to meet or arrange a meeting with them or whatever, then that is a possibility, you can reach that.
Okay. That's a difficult aspect, isn't it?
Into a future agenda.
Shall we put it onto a future agenda? Yeah, because I'm sure Kath has time at this point and might wish to consider that. Item 15, 2 notes, the date of next meeting, which is the 3rd of October 2024. Miss Peter.
Sorry, it made me go with when I was wheeling Mr. Bennett to his car, but item 7, did you?
Oh, that was great.
Did it? Oh, that's like I say, I didn't.
We killed it. Yeah, it's okay.
That's fine.
It's all right. In that case, I now announce that this epic meeting is over.